indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Commissioner Zuber, would you call the roll, please?
Certainly. Commissioner Charia?
Yes.
Commissioner Eggenberger?
Yes.
Oh, sorry. Commissioner Foster?
Yes.
Commissioner Okan?
Here.
Commissioner Singh is not here. Commissioner Watkins?
Here.
Commissioner Weber?
Here.
Commissioner Zuber and Chairman Green. I'm here, by the way. Chairman Green, sorry.
Okay. Here.
All right.
All right, we have minutes to approve, two sets of minutes, actually, one from July 25th. Do I hear a motion to accept those minutes?
So moved.
Any support?
Support.
All right, got a motion by Commissioner Zuber and support by Commissioner Weber. Voice vote, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, and then also we have our August 8th meeting minutes. Do I hear a motion to accept those minutes?
So moved.
Support.
Got a motion by Commissioner Zuber to accept the August 8th minutes and support by Commissioner Weber. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Stated before us, we have an agenda of 7 items, 7 specific items. Anything late to add from staff?
Nothing to add. The only item I want to note is Commissioner Singh previously notified staff that he would not be able to attend tonight.
And seeing none, do I hear a motion to accept tonight's agenda?
So moved.
Support.
A motion by Commissioner Weber and support by Commissioner Zuber to accept tonight's agenda. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Any materials that came before the planning department that we didn't receive in our packet? Anything late?
Nothing to add. I think we previously emailed the monthly report.
Right on to our first agenda item. First of all, I believe 5 of our agenda items are public hearings. Public hearings are very useful to the commission and the trustees because obviously we get feedback from the folks who actually use the township. So it's a good thing to do. Just a little bit time consuming, so we ask that you not duplicate a lot of information. If you're a spokesperson for a large group, identify yourself as such, and then we can cut down to just the basic things there. When you do, I believe there's a form on the podium, and you must go to the podium because this is recorded, and just fill out a form, just your name and address, and then when you do speak, give us your name and address, and then speak your specific item. So, with that said, we'll move into our first public hearing for the evening. It's Creekview Landings. We're considering a PDD for property located north of Gettys and west of Denton. Patrick, could you give us more detail, please?
Sure, thank you. The applicant proposes to develop 449 single-family for-rent residential units on approximately 224.6 acres located north of Gettys Road and west of Denton Road. Of the 449 units, there are 107 that will be attached, and the remaining 342 will be detached. There's one entrance proposed on Denton Road that's located about 750 feet north of Gettys Road, and 2 entrances are proposed on Gettys Road. The eastern entrance on Gettys Road is located about a half mile from Denton and aligns with Barr Road. And the western entrance along Gettys Road is near the far west end of the site, near the township line. Each planned development district is required to demonstrate definite benefits to the community, and the project sponsor proposes the following definite benefits. First is connection and extension of the regional path system from Hamlet to Gettys over the west township boundary, which is one connection in the northwest part of the site and one connection in the northeast part of the site that are illustrated on the plans. There's also the proposal to preserve many of the wooded areas, which is enhanced with a pathway through the woods in connection to the path system. The site proposes 61% open space, or about 140 and a half acres, which far exceeds the 25% minimum open space required in a PD. The site is proposed to have active recreational amenities, including a pool, dog park, splash pad, basketball court, and playground. There are other lighting and architectural amenities in the project. There's a proposal to complete and enhance the regional pond in the northeast part of the site, which is part of the Hamlet Pond as well. There's also a proposal from the applicant to meet a need for different types of rental product and provide another housing opportunity in the township. And the applicants have submitted a market study with their application to demonstrate market demand, rents, and so forth for the product that's proposed. There is about 25% of the proposed development is aimed at empty nesters, which would make traffic generation slightly lower than a standard R2 single-family detached development. Having said that, I think the traffic study was based on just single-family residential units without the empty nester calculation in there. So the traffic study would probably be on the higher end in terms of trips generated, and the applicants can discuss that in more detail. And finally, the proposed connection to adjacent water main systems to the north and south to complete a loop. As I previously noted, the applicants have submitted a traffic impact study, and that traffic impact study has also been reviewed by the township's traffic engineering consultant, Wade Trim. And based on the review of Wade Trim, the Wade Trim finds the traffic study and the proposed changes for the mitigation to be acceptable. There are some slight differences between what's described on the plan and what's proposed in the traffic impact study. So one of staff's recommendations is that if the Planning Commission recommends approval, that one of the conditions be that all the recommendations of the traffic study pursuant to the traffic study and Wade Trim's review be implemented. Based on the expected operations as noted in the study, the following improvements are recommended. First, to provide an exclusive westbound right turn lane on Geddes Road, and the plans show this. The second is to provide an exclusive southbound right turn lane on Denton. The plans show this also. The third improvement is to provide a westbound right turn lane and an eastbound left turn lane on Geddes Road at the proposed West Site Drive. There's a two-lane egress approach recommended to accommodate the site-generated traffic. The plans show a westbound right turn lane and a left turn passing lane, as well as a one-lane egress approach. We recommend that the eastbound left turn lane recommended in the traffic impact study, as well as the two-lane egress approach, be implemented. The fourth improvement is to provide a westbound right turn lane and an eastbound left turn lane on Geddes Road at the proposed Middle Site Drive. The plans show these as proposed. And then finally, the traffic study recommends providing a northbound left turn lane on Denton Road at the proposed East Site Drive, and the plans show that proposal. With the recommendations of the traffic study implemented, the level of service at the approaches and intersections are expected to be raised or improved to a level of service D or higher. Level of service D or higher is typically classified as an acceptable level of service based on traffic study best practices. Wade Trim states that the traffic study was prepared according to standard procedures and guidelines required by Wayne County and Canton Township, and recommends that the traffic study be approved with the improvements noted in the traffic study. Finally, Wade Trim notes in their review that due to other traffic in the area and future growth, Wayne County should consider installing north and south left turn phase at the intersection of Geddes Road and Denton Road, as well as adding eastbound right turn lane on Geddes Road. The next part of our review gets into the schedule of regulations and modifications. Typically with a planned development, there's underlying zoning requirements, in this case the R2 zoning district, that has minimum standards for lot area, lot width, setbacks, et cetera. And in a planned development, the applicant's required to put in the schedule of regulations and modifications in terms of those areas of the zoning ordinance that they propose to modify. What's unique about the schedule of modifications proposed is that because the entire community is presented as a for-rent product, there's essentially one lot for the entire development, which makes no lot lines, no setbacks, almost like a multifamily development where there are no lot lines. And where there's not a setback requirement, there's a separate requirement that gets into separation distances between structures. What we've recommended along the way is that we have two sets of regulations and modifications. One for if the development remains as a for-rent product with one lot, where we would just use separation distances. The other method would be if the development were to be constructed and they decide to convert the project to a for-sale product. In that case, the applicants would most likely want to convert a portion or all of the site to a site condo and overlay lot lines where there are units. So on the plans presented, it does illustrate lot lines as if it would look like a site condo. And it's illustrated just to show what the setbacks and separation distances would be and how the development may look if it were to be converted to a site condo. It may never be a site condo. If it's proposed, it may remain as a for-rent product, but as housing demand and market changes, it is possible that there could be that conversion in the future. So what's unique to this project that's not seen in other projects is that we have reviewed it based on whether it's converted to a site condo, as well as what it's proposed as with the separation distances. So having said that, one of the first modifications is the minimum lot area. With a for-rent product, there's not lots proposed. It's just one large lot. But if the development is ever converted to a site condominium, the minimum lot area would be 20,000 square feet per lot. In that event, the lots would not comply with the zoning ordinance, which is why we've recommended that the modifications be included in the plan development proposal, in the plan development agreement, in the event that the project is ever converted. And what's illustrated is a minimum lot area of 5,625 square feet on the plans for the smallest lot if it were to be converted. Some of the lots are illustrated as large as 7,500 square feet, again, if they were ever converted to lots. Now, previously, we noted that there was a large area of the site preserved as open space as 61%. So as those lots get smaller than 20,000 square feet, the size of the open space area increases proportionally. The second modification is minimum lot width. Again, while there are not individual lots proposed due to the rental nature of the development, the lot width, if it were converted to a site condominium as illustrated, would be 45 feet at the lowest end, with some lots illustrated as wide as 60 feet. The minimum lot width in the R2 zoning district is 100 feet. The third modification is the minimum front yard setback. Both attached and detached condominium units are required to have a front yard setback of 30 feet in the R2 district. A minimum front yard for individual lots, if it's converted to a site condominium, would be 40 feet. The minimum front yard setbacks illustrated on the plans are 20 feet. Our recommendation on that is that the minimum front lot setback or separation distance between the back of the sidewalk and the front of the garage be at least 22 feet. That allows enough room to park a car without overhanging into the sidewalk and still allowing room in front of the garage. 22 feet is a fairly common setback for some of our attached and multifamily developments. The fourth modification proposed is the minimum unit separation or side yard setback. If the development remains as a rental development without individual lots, the separation distance is a minimum of 20 feet. The separation distance proposed is 10 feet between detached units and 15 feet between attached units. And if there's a minimum side yard setback, the minimum in the R2 district is 15 feet with a total side yard setback of 35 feet. Therefore, with a separation distance of 10 feet, the minimum side yard setbacks would be 5 feet if they were converted to a site condo. The fifth modification is the minimum rear yard setback. If it remains as a rental development, the minimum rear yard setback is 40 feet, which appears to be met. But if there's individual lots, the minimum is 50 feet. The minimum rear yard setbacks illustrated on the plans are 45 feet for two-story homes on a 45-foot wide lot and 35 feet for all other units. The next modification is from the minimum floor area. The minimum floor area of 1,600 square feet is required for units with basements and 1,800 square feet for units without basements. A minimum floor area of 1,400 square feet is proposed. The next modification is from the architecture. The architectural plans propose elevations submitted with 29% brick and 71% siding for the ranch-style home, and 20% brick and 80% siding for the two-story home. There are additional architectural treatments proposed for the corner units. Section 26.06 of the ordinance requires minimum 50% brick and maximum of 25% vinyl siding on all residential structures. Our recommendation here is, regardless of how this modification is reviewed, we recommend that because of the proximity of the units in the northwest part of the site to the hamlet development, which does meet the brick requirements, we recommend that units 172 through 229 be designed with at least 50% brick to be consistent with the adjacent area. The next modification is the number of attached units. In the R2 district, single-family attached residential units are permitted, but are limited to 2 units per building and a maximum building length of 100 feet. The plans show up to 4 units per building and a maximum length of 137.09 feet. Finally, the last proposed modification is the wetland buffer. There's a minimum wetland buffer of 25 feet required by the zoning ordinance. And the plan illustrates disturbances in these areas and in the setbacks. The plans state that about 1.84 acres of buffer area will be impacted. So the plans in the PD agreement would just have to be completed to show all of the schedule of regulations and modifications. The plan illustrates sidewalks and trails throughout the development. There are internal sidewalks on both sides of the streets, except along some open spaces where there's sidewalk on only one side of the street. The construction of sidewalk along Geddes and Denton Road will result in many gaps on existing parcels that are not part of the development. If the preliminary PD is approved, we'll recommend that the applicant start the process of obtaining easements from owners on Geddes Road and Denton Road, where sidewalk gaps will be created. And the applicant should provide information on whether sidewalk construction is feasible within the existing right-of-way in each parcel where there will be a gap. The filling of sidewalk gaps created by the project would also be a definite benefit, in addition to the ones mentioned earlier. The connection and extension of the regional pass system from the hamlet will also be a definite benefit, and it'll connect to existing dead ends in the northwest part of the site and the northeast part of the site near the pond. There are also other proposed trails on the plan, which include a trail through the woodland area in the northwest part of the site and a stub on the west boundary. We also recommend that some internal trails be considered prior to final PDD review, such as along the creek and/or along the ITC corridor that runs through the property. We also recommend that the gravel trail be shown at least 10 feet wide. For the natural features of the site consists of wetlands, 16.44 acres that are regulated, of which 0.47 acres will be impacted. There's also woodlands with a water course, Fowler Creek, that go through the site. Due to the grading in the wetland area, the applicant would be required to obtain permits from Eagle. Many wetland areas will be preserved and left untouched, and many landmark trees will be preserved as a result of the woodland preservation. There's a significant amount of woods in the northwest part of the site that are being preserved and enhanced with a recreational pathway. If the preliminary PD is recommended for approval, we would recommend that the landscaping plan be submitted during final PD review, including a tree survey. For the landscaping, there's not a landscaping plan required during preliminary PD review, but we recommend that one be submitted at final PD review if the project is voted to move forward. There are some frontage landscaping elements illustrated along Geddes Road and Denton Road that is consistent with the character of those areas. So we would want to see a more full landscape plan at final PD review if the preliminary PD is approved. Also, for the farmland areas that are proposed to be seeded with meadow prairie mix that are noted in the plan, We recommend that there be a draft prairie restoration and management plan submitted at final PD review to prevent from any kind of improper maintenance or having it look like a fallow type of field. One of the last impacts is, or the last items is the fiscal impact and market study. The narrative provided by the applicant states that the attached for-rent homes will have an estimated market value of $135,000, and the detached for-rent and for-sale homes will have an estimated market value of $350,000. Based on the fiscal impact and other attached units that we've seen in the township, the market values for similar units of the attached seem greater than $135,000. But based on our initial calculations of applicable tax revenues for residential values as high as $350,000, those typically indicate a relatively neutral or slightly impact for the budgets of the township. Also, we previously noted that the applicants have included a market study that includes details on projected lease rates and demand. With the PD agreement, there are a few minor corrections to the agreement for formatting and some structure, but nothing too major, and it'll require further review by Township Legal Counsel. So staff's recommendation is that if the Planning Commission is satisfied with the development proposal and the conditions and modifications presented, we would recommend approval of the preliminary PDD as provided in the agreement and the plan documents, subject to the conditions noted in our review letter. Finally, if there is additional information that's required of the applicant, then we would recommend deferring action pending receipt and review of any additional information. That concludes staff's report, and we'll be happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Patrick. Is the project representative here? Okay, would you care to come up to the podium and identify yourself? And before you get going, I would be remiss, I'm sorry I did this or I skipped this, but I just wanted to introduce our planning staff. This is our community planner, in case you didn't know, Patrick Sloan, who gave that great dissertation just now, and our senior planner, Aaron Schluto, is here with us as well. So, yes, sir.
All right, my name is Howard Fingerroot. I'm the president of Sunrise Land Group. Thank you I appreciate the time to be in front of you today. I have my team with me here too, because later on, if there are any questions, I'll take the easy ones, and any of the hard ones you can direct to Nikki Jeffries. She's the director of development at Sunrise. Bill Anderson's with our engineering and planning firm Atwell. And then as our secret weapon to help go through the ordinances and the architecture, we brought on Jeff Goulet, just if there was any questions, and because he's probably most familiar with the ordinances. So,
Jeff who?
In my 30 years of real estate development, I've been with 4 companies, and the common theme here is in each one of the companies, I've always ended up in Canton. So I think that's a good thing. I started a couple decades ago at Pulte. Then I started my own company, Pinnacle Homes. We did a few subdivisions here. And then I sold Pinnacle to MI Homes, and I started Park Creek over on Geddes and Beck. And then most recently, I started a new company called Sunrise Land Group. And Sunrise Land Group, we do all the ground-up development for a large publicly traded company called Sun Communities. So what I want to start out right now is take 2 minutes and explain who Sun Communities is. That's our client who we do all our development for, and then go through single family for rent, kind of give you a sense of what we think about there, and then go through the project. And I promise we'll do it as expeditiously as possible. Sun Communities is a real estate investment trust. It's a New York Stock Exchange publicly traded company. And as a real estate investment trust, they own and operate real estate in a variety of real estate classes, okay? Their largest class, and this isn't what we're proposing here today, their largest class is the attainable housing area of real estate. They do that through manufactured homes. And again, we're not proposing manufactured homes here today, but that's a large part of what Sun Community does. Another thing that Sun Community does is RV resorts. And they develop and operate some of the nicest RV resorts, highly amenitized in some just great assets along the Pacific Ocean, the Atlantic Ocean, the Rocky Mountains, the Cascade Mountains. So they do a wonderful job in the RV space. We're not proposing that here tonight. Thirdly, Sun is the largest owner-operator of marinas in North America. 70% of their marinas are on the ocean, 30% are on inland lakes. And their fourth class that they do, and this is something relatively new to Sun, is single family for rent, and that's what we're proposing here today. So in a nutshell, that's kind of Sun Communities. It's a Michigan-based company that operates throughout North America. In fact, has operations in Australia, and just recently opened up in the United Kingdom as well. So great company, large company based right here in Michigan. There's a few points here. They went public in '75. They have very professional managers. What they are is they are a professional management group, be it marinas or RVs or single family for rent. They're on site. They make sure that all their real estate is kept up in really best-in-class conditions, and they always reinvest in the properties they own. So they've been here for around 50 years. They own all the assets they've developed over the 50 years and plan to in perpetuity. So it's keeping things in the best shape is paramount to Sun Communities. So let's talk about single family for rent. You've probably heard some, maybe there is some single family for rent right now in Canton, but this has been a space that has been growing substantially since the Great Recession back in 2008. That space kind of really took off for a variety of reasons, one of which may be a demographic trend where the younger folks, the millennials, the Generation X, they're deciding whether they really want to own a house or they want to rent a house. They want the advantages of a house, right? They want the space, they want the yard, but they don't necessarily want ownership. They may want to move around, they may want the flexibility. So that's one of the main reasons we've seen this space grow, and it's really growing throughout the country. The interesting part of the whole home building market is there's about 130 million households in the United States, 130 million. About just over a third is rented, 2/3 is owned, okay? So if we take the third that's rented and we have the pie at the bottom, about a third of that is in single family. So there's about 16 million houses across the United States where people rent the single family homes as opposed to own them. So it's existed for a long time. It's just growing more and more in popularity. This just shows a little chart. And again, I said early, kind of in the 2006, this is the last 15 years, you can see that there's been really a lot of growth in this space. In terms of geographically, these are percentages of what percent of the construction permits that are issued are for build to rent. Some, with the purpose build for rent, and you can see in the Midwest, it's funny, the National Association of Home Builders call it the East North Central, but I think all of us consider that the Midwest. But just under 8% of the building permits now are purpose-built for rent. And this is the interesting thing. Of the whole market of single-family rentals, only about a small percentage, okay? A small percentage is actually institutionally owned. A lot of them are mom and pops. And there's an advantage to an institutionally owned piece of property. You know that the company has the wherewithal to keep the property up, to maintain, expand, and do what they say they're going to do. So we're seeing now a lot more of institutional investors like Sun developing and managing these types of assets. So we say, what is the product that we're offering? What does it look like? Well, my background, as I just could have said, is in home building. So this single family for rent is right up our alley, and we wanted to design a home that looks great, that fits the neighborhood and fits the bill for somebody, young families or retirees that want to come in and enjoy this type of neighborhood. So we're offering 2 ranch plans, and, well, it's going to be age-targeted towards, we think, a lot of people 55 and older. We also see a lot of young couples that go into ranch products, and we range from 1,400 to 1,600 feet. You can see kind of the craftsman-type architecture that we use here. This is the first one, the second ranch, very similar. We have different floor plans, and we try to create enough separation, so if somebody wants a smaller house, somebody wants a bigger house, we can offer both. Then we also offer 2 two-story homes. We offer from 1,600 to almost 1,900 square feet. So on the rental side, you tend to get a little bit smaller than kind of the big colonials that you'll see around for purchase. But you kind of, like I said, you get the best of both worlds. You get the flexibility of renting, but you get privacy, you get your individual house, and you get your lot. So this is the architecture of it. And then we have one section of attached ranches. Again, this was more for a little bit of a price point and these were really targeted towards our 55-plus communities that may be a little bit more cost-conscious. We have one pod of the attached ranches. Again, all ranches, and every one of the homes has 2-car attached garage. All right, well, we get to the thoughtful design and the more difficult things. So I'm going to bring Nikki up to talk through that, and the whole team's available afterwards if there's any questions. Thank you very much. Can I get my phone back?
Hi, I'm Nikki Jeffries. I'm just going to talk through the site a little bit and our site plan. This slide shows the property. It's at the northwest corner of Denton and Geddes, as Patrick mentioned. It's just under 230 acres. We have some frontage on Denton Road as well as Geddes. There is the Fowler Creek that runs through the middle of the site. We do show the woodlands up kind of on the northwest corner of the site, which we are going to preserve. The regional stormwater pond we were talking about is just north of our site as well, so we're planning to expand that. We can go to the site plan slide. This is our proposed site plan. As Patrick mentioned, we are not proposing lots here, but we may change in the future, but the plan is not to change. So we're just depicting what would be considered a lot here in the light yellow color. As you can see, we've clustered them a bit, so we have a lot of open space. We're proposing over 60% of the site as open space. So the actual single-family homes will all be on these light yellow colored lots. The attached product that we have 107 of those are in the kind of the southern middle part of the site, shown in brown, the buildings there, so you can get a feel for where they're located. We're proposing 3 entryways to the site, 2 off of Geddes, one kind of on the far west side of the site, one more in the central side that kind of comes in, central south side, where it comes in at the multifamily attached product, and then one off of Denton Road over there on the east side of the site. We're proposing lots of amenities. The large amenity center with clubhouse, which I'll go over in more detail, is over on the western side of the site, kind of the western central side of the site there. And I'll show you a plan for that as well. I think we talked about the total number of units. It's 449, 107 will be attached. The remainder will be the detached units, which gives us the allowed density here of 2 per acre. We can go to the next slide, Patrick, thanks. This is our example, or this is our plan for the amenity area that I was just talking about. We are proposing a clubhouse, which is kind of shown centrally there. Obviously, there will be parking. There's going to be a mail center, a pool with a splash pad, playgrounds, a basketball court, some open play areas. So this is really our central amenity that all residents will be allowed to use. There's also going to be some additional parks and trails throughout, but this is kind of the gathering space, the central gathering space. So this is something Sun does in all communities, and people love it. So if you go to the next slide, this is just some ideas of the types of amenities that we would put in here: playgrounds, pools, sports courts, et cetera, to give you a feel for what we're talking about. You can go next slide. This is our proposed clubhouse elevation. The top is the front that would face the parking lot, and the rear elevation is on the bottom, and that would face the pool area and patio. Give you a feel for what we're proposing here. Next slide. And I just wanted to finish up. I know Patrick went through this. Our proposed benefits here: we're connecting and extending the regional trail system in multiple locations. We're preserving a lot of wooded area on the site as much as possible, and it's over 43 acres that we're preserving. We have over 140 acres of open space, which is over 60%. We're providing a lot of recreational amenities, as I mentioned: the pool, splash pad, playground, dog park, et cetera. We're completing the regional stormwater pond. We're providing a new type of housing and rental housing that we think there's a need for in the area, and is maybe different than what's already being provided in Canton. 25% or a portion of our development is aimed at empty nesters, active adult, as Howard mentioned, which should have a reduced traffic impact. As Patrick mentioned, our traffic study did assume all single family, so we do actually think the traffic from our development will be less because we will have a portion of it as active adult. But we just wanted to make sure that we were providing for all needed traffic improvements. And lastly, we are connecting the water main system in 3 different locations to complete a loop and provide redundancy. So I believe that's the end of it. So we are here to answer questions as needed. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that, both of you. I think this is a public hearing, so let's open such.
So moved.
Oh. All right, we've got a motion by Commissioner Okan, support by Commissioner Zuber. How's that? All in favor of opening the public hearing for this project, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, what we're going to do is we're going to start with the front row and work back and find out if there's any comments or questions that you might have. What you might want to do, Ms. Jeffries, is just be at the podium in case there are any questions, both from the audience or from the commission. Or one of you, can do that, or both of you, quite honestly. So anyone in the first row? Second row? Any comments, concerns on this project? Third row? Fourth row? Come on up, sir. Yep, all the way up to the podium. Welcome.
Michael Dawson, I live on Getty's Road in one of the housings, and I'm just curious, what's that? 50160 Getty's? The question is the property elevation is about 5 feet higher than where I'm at. Is it proposed to bring it down more to road grade level? Or are they gonna leave it up, so like basically all the neighbors will see over my house in a way? Because if you stand on their property, you can see downwards, you know what I mean?
Which property is yours, sir? Okay.
Yeah, if you come up to the podium.
Bill Anderson with Atwell. When we do the topo and full grading, we'll make sure these outlots have drainage relief to them. I will tell you, I do know there's some fill out there along several of those outlots. Some of that large regional detention, as I understand, was filled out there years ago, now probably 15 years ago. So It'll be a draining exercise, but we'll grade and drain it such that they'll have the proper relief for all those outlot properties.
It'll be a good landscape buffer because there's going to be landscaping planned.
That does.
Thank you. Anyone else from any of the back rows? Come on.
Sorry, you missed your chance. Okay.
Had to think about it a while, huh? All right, come on up, sir.
My name is Ben Chafin. We live at 51140 Geddes Road, which is at the far west end. Jeff, you'll remember this as being Jake Dingledy's property. The question is, the entrance that's going between the two residents, will there be a deceleration lane in front of our home? Because there's a really nice big tree there that I'm very concerned about losing.
There is definitely some traffic improvements that are required.
Can you move over to the microphone?
Sorry. There's some traffic requirements, or traffic improvements that are required there. I believe we're proposing a center, or a passing lane, and then you can see it as he zoomed in. You're on the far west?
No, not the far west. I'm
The next one. So as you can see, there is, you can see the improvements there, the decel lane, which is proposed and required by the traffic study. So where's the tree we're talking about?
Yeah, right there. Right under that lane right here.
Oh,
Right underneath that lane.
yeah.
So there is a ditch there, and so we're right on the other side of the ditch. Would you go beyond the ditch? You would locate it farther back towards my house?
Could we have any speakers come up to the microphone,
All
please?
speaker, yeah, we can.
So if you're saying that you're gonna take away the ditch that's presently there and the tree is on the homeowner's side of the ditch, and when you take away that ditch for the deceleration lane, are you proposing you're gonna move the ditch farther to the north?
It will get pushed. I don't have the final.
Please speak into the microphone, sir.
Yeah, clearly, it will get pushed to the north. I don't have final design yet, but we'll certainly meet with this gentleman when we get into that. He's impacted by that, so.
I mean, there's a possibility we could put curb in or something like that, so
Right.
that we could avoid putting a ditch closer to your house, which I'm assuming you don't want.
Well, it's not only that I don't want the ditch. We don't, I mean,
You don't want the decel lane.
I don't know, we talked about the traffic studies. I don't know if you guys have been out on Geddes Road lately. The amount of traffic that's out there and the speed of the people that are traveling that road and the passing that is going on out there, it is hazardous. You can't even walk out by Geddes Road without being afraid somebody is going to run you over. So I don't know, and like I say, I'm not for or against anything, but I think we really need to look at the study. The 50 mile an hour, it probably needs to be lowered down. And I know that's a county road, you guys probably can't change that, but the speed on the road, the passing, the motorcycle racing, the drag racing, not drag racing, but there is racing that's going on out there. The motorcycles that are, it's insane. It's not safe. And when we're gonna be adding, I don't know how many more vehicles on that road going into that subdivision, it's gonna become just worse. They got the school down there. We have ambulances that are going down this road. It is a very, very busy road. And I just, I'm not sure what the right route is there, but like I say, you start moving stuff farther to my house, my front yard, I can touch the road. And that's just because that house was built back in the 40s, when the road was probably a dirt road at that time, and there was no big concern, and it's just gonna be too close.
Patrick, because of the fact that the ditch is obviously going to be affected by this, would Wayne County and Eagle be involved in the design of this?
Definitely Wayne County, because Geddes Road is a Wayne County road.
Right.
So they'll be involved with not just the traffic study, the mitigation, the lanes, but also ditching, water runoff.
So obviously, the design of this is, it deserves a lot of thought process. Should this go forward? So obviously, they'll take that under recommendation in terms of what they have to do, the best way to go around this. Because obviously, with that kind of development, you do need those decel lanes and the passing lanes in order to make Getty's more efficient right in there. But, you know, I live off of Getty's, and I agree with you. The increased amount of traffic makes it more difficult for all of us to get out.
And I don't know when the study was done, it may have been done a couple of years ago, I don't know, but in the last 18 months to 2 years, the traffic it's gone crazy. So at what point do we hear from you guys then, as far as how this is going to
Well,
progress?
we have to proceed with this.
Okay.
This proceeding, and then go from there as to, you know, what happens.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for your comments, appreciate it. Anyone else from any of the rows? All right, with that, do I hear a motion to close the public hearing?
So moved.
Support.
Got a motion to close the public hearing by Commissioner Weber and support by Commissioner Zuber. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, I'm going to start with the commission then. Commissioner Acharya.
It seems to be a great project. I'm a little concerned about the traffic because I too live on Denton, and that's been a concern. I think we'll have about 900 to 1,000 new folks living in that area, so that is going to add significantly to the traffic. So that is an area of concern. If that is mitigated, I think it's a good project. Thank you.
Thank you.
Lester?
Yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry, I was thinking about something that he said, but go ahead.
Thank you. I agree with Commissioner Ataria. I will say that I do also appreciate the connection and the extension of the pathways. One of the things that, you know, I'm very passionate about in this community is making sure that we are making our pathways and our trailways more connected. So I do appreciate that. I drive on Getty's Road a lot, and I have similar concerns about the traffic and have noticed the uptick in, I would say, more adventurous drivers in the last couple of years. And so I know that there was the traffic study done, and I do believe further on in the process when Wayne County gets involved, they will look at it again, right, Patrick?
Yeah, one of Wayne County's evaluations is they review traffic studies from applicants and determine if they're in agreement or not. Our traffic consultant is in agreement with their study, which indicates that although Wayne County is likely in agreement, we don't know until they get into the permitting process with Wayne County how they apply the traffic study and if there's anything else that Wayne County requires along the way.
One thing you'll just note is that this is the first step in a very long process towards getting this project completed, and so there will be many more opportunities to evaluate as we go along, if this is approved tonight. So thank you.
Mr. Okan?
Yeah, I agree with Summer. It's a great looking project. I love how you're keeping 60% open space. I love the pocket parks. I think it'll be an asset for the community. Appreciate it.
Weber?
I like the project too. I have similar concern about the traffic, particularly Getty's Road. I think too often in Canton, we've seen development expand without true consideration to the infrastructure or the road system in this community, and we end up with messes like we have on Ford Road and probably Cherry Hill at some point and Warren Road. But I know that's county road. There's not a lot we can do about it. I would hope that the county would entertain some other improvements to the roadway to lessen hazards on this road. I think lowering the speed on Getty's Road is a good idea, but I don't know if that'll happen. Patrick, you've made mention a couple different times throughout your presentation about if this becomes owned properties. The petitioner makes a point at the very outset of its presentation that this is the way to go. This is the way rental single family. Is there talk that this is gonna, if this doesn't work, this is gonna go to ownership of like site condo or single family homes? Is that what's going on here? And if so, what's going on here that through the approval process that it makes it easier for this to get approved in this format as opposed if we were talking about site condos or single family homes?
So during the process, the question of converting it to potentially an ownership model, those questions have been primarily from staff. And the reasons being is that a development this large with this many detached residential units that are all for rent, we had some questions about the market study, about any other comps in the area for a development this size that was exclusively rental. And there are not a lot of communities, and that may indicate a very strong demand where this may never be considered for an ownership model. It may work just fine as a rental model. But what we wanted to do was to try to cover both ends of it if, for some reason, whether something wasn't correct with the market study or if market forces changed over the next few years where an ownership model became preferable. But converting it to an ownership, that's mostly a concern that staff has raised. And as a result, we had asked the applicants to overlay lot lines on them so that we could see what the development would look like if it were to be converted to an ownership model. And the reason we did that is that if this, for example, were to be approved as rent only and it showed as one large lot with the separation distances and everything that's there and there's no interior setbacks, then if later on it went to an ownership model, we would have to tell the applicants, well, the only way to do that is number one, to amend the PDD to overlay lot lines at that point, and maybe you can get approved, maybe not. And also, they would have to file a master deed and bylaws. Now, there's no master deed and bylaws proposed here because it's just conceptual, but this was just an effort to try to overlay some lot lines so that we could see them at this point, so that if there is a change in the future, we could provide for it in the PD agreement so that if it happens, we know that the PD provides for it and they can move straight to the site condominium application and not have to redo the PD unless there are amendments to the PD.
There's no differences in setbacks or anything that we'd be concerned about if they switch to an ownership model?
It's got, in our analysis of the schedule of modifications, there would be front yard setbacks, side setbacks, and rear yard setback modifications. And there are lots illustrated on some of the pages here. I think it's the third or fourth page.
Oh, I just want to say that we have no intent of converting it. This was, all the analysis, as Patrick had said, was because the staff had asked for it. We're proposing it as it is, and that's how we would like to keep it in perpetuity. But we did the analysis because we were asked.
But the bottom line is, if they did do that, they'd have to come back here to amend the PDD. So there is some control over, in terms of if they do that, correct?
Well, one of the things that we wanted to do was so that if they ever switched to an ownership model, they wouldn't have to amend the PDD. If the PDD allowed a separate set of modifications of if it's converted to an ownership model, these are the modifications that are proposed in terms of these are the setbacks that you must have. So that would give the township a little bit of predictability in terms of if they ever switch to an ownership, these are what the lot lines would look like. The lot lines wouldn't change shape, or they wouldn't have a proposal for, say, 2 detached units on one lot or anything like that, that this would be workable if they were to convert it to lots. So as Howard mentioned, they have no plan of doing that. They may never do it. It's just something as kind of a contingency plan if it were to switch over to an ownership model. It would be easier to put these in place now in the PD agreement as an option rather than have to go back in a future date and try to draw on lot lines in areas that weren't designed to have them in the first place.
So the answer to my, is the answer to my question, would they have to come back here or no?
As it's proposed, no, because we want them covered for both sets of modifications at this time, just so that it's in the PD agreement, they don't have to. Unless the Planning Commission and Board want to put a condition in the PD agreement that if they ever do switch to an ownership model or something like it, that they have to amend the PD. That's definitely an option for the Planning Commission and the Board.
One other concern, with this being rental properties, there's always been the stigma about aesthetics, and when I say aesthetics, I'm talking about upkeep of property and all that sort of thing. I would assume, being Sun Communities, that you have a comprehensive and well-maintained maintenance program for these properties and that sort of thing?
Absolutely. We have on-site management, we have on-site maintenance, and we continually reinvest in the community to make sure that it's in top shape.
I have nothing else, Mr. Chairman.
Patrick, I'm having difficulty with this. If their impetus in this was to go rental, why was it even discussed as a possible ownership model? They said that the staff asked for those lot lines. It sounds like that wasn't even part of the discussion, and I'm having problems because in all my years on the Planning Commission, it's either been this or it's been that, and never, well, we could do this, but we might convert to that. And now he's saying that that's not their intent anyway, so why are we even talking about an ownership model in the future or possible conversion?
There aren't many communities or comparables for a development of this size with this many detached single-family rentals. I think the market study indicates that it does work as a detached rental, but there could be changes in the market, and there could be future changes in the owner's preference. Now, if this were to be detached or attached multifamily buildings, let's say it was in a different zone and it was in a multifamily zone, we had multifamily buildings, that's usually not a concern because it's much more difficult to create a condo out of a multifamily than it would be out of detached single family. And so if it's multifamily, there's typically not that concern, although sometimes multifamily developments are divided into large chunks because for financing reasons. But for something like this, it's fairly unproven as a housing product of this large, of this many detached rentals. And we were concerned with the viability of the development if, let's say, the market study overestimated how well it would do, or if market forces were such that it's more effective to just sell them than to rent them, or if there are certain portions of the development that were more advantageous to create as a for sale product, with the remainder being for rental product, of having a hybrid type of development. Those types of questions came up continuously for staff during the phases when we were looking at the market study, we're looking at the development. And so during the process, we wanted, even if the lot lines never happen and they're just there for illustrative purposes, we wanted to see how those lot lines would function if in the future they were proposing an ownership model and they wanted to put lot lines down. We wanted to make sure that the development could still work in that scenario, rather than have something where to create lot lines in the future if it ever changes, and have something that perhaps doesn't work that creates a conflict between the owner and the township.
Okay, so my question is, from our standpoint, in the planning aspect of this, why are we even involved in the market concept? I would think that would be their concern in terms of what's viable on the market, as opposed to us approving either a rental or a condominium or a site condominium. I would think that would be up to them to decide, well, this is the way for us to go. And it sounds like they did. It sounds like because at the beginning, dissertation in terms of all your statistics and, what you plan to do was all rental. So I guess I'm failing to understand the option here of going ownership. And that's quite messy anyway, if you were to go from rental to ownership to a condo or site condo. when it comes to dues and having, a board and all that kind of stuff and filing with Wayne County and everything else. And I would rather just be talking about the rental community that you're proposing today.
I am comfortable with that, and if we have to do this, and I don't imagine we ever would, we would volunteer to come back here, if we want to say that. But that is not our intent, and I don't see that happening.
I don't think we have to discuss. I think what Patrick's saying is, staff put it out there. As far as what I understand is, Patrick, you didn't really have something to compare this to. So you're saying, what if this doesn't work? You're saying, what if, is basically what you're saying. I don't think we have to determine anything as far as the ownership model, as far as making a determination on this project. I mean, it's strictly based on their rent.
Other than that, I like the fact that you've gotten a lot of open space here and not just the minimum 25%. As you know, open space is becoming a prime commodity in Canton, and so I applaud you for that. And also the trail system and the recreation and so on and so forth. That's becoming very big in Canton. There is one question I have, and that could be just a drawing thing. Patrick, if you could pull up the overall site plan, and particularly Getty's. Okay, the eastern entrance. If you could zoom in on the eastern entrance a little bit. Okay, I don't see a passing lane going on the eastbound side. Was that just a drawing error?
It's a center left turn lane, rather than a passing lane, but I think it's just hard to see because of the yellow line being dashed
yellow
and
there.
thick. But it is for sure
that's-
a center left and a right turn lane in, and that's what the traffic study recommended. So I think it's just hard to see because of that line work on top
That's
of
going to
it.
be critical there, especially
Yeah.
at Bar Road.
Bar Road is
like
going to go north now, essentially.
Other question I had was, leaving out the sidewalks and areas adjacent to open areas. Now, I understand sidewalks cost more money and stuff like that, but I'm also for, providing pedestrian pathways whenever. So on both sides of the street, I would like to see sidewalks, even if it is adjacent to an open area.
I believe we're proposing sidewalks on both sides of the street
Go
and,
up on the upper side. I think
oh,
there's some areas there that do not have any. And all that means is that, people, I think you're gonna have it on one side, so that gives some option, but that ends up with people walking in the street in the snow and everything else. I would prefer to see sidewalk on both sides of all streets, myself. I don't know how the rest of the commission feels about that. You see, all along there.
yeah, it's where we have lots, we have sidewalk both sides, and then when it's going kind of from one to the other, then it goes to one side.
Stops.
Yep. It's, the red lines are the sidewalks on here.
It's kind of shortchanging the whole walkable community idea, don't you think?
What is the reason for not having the sidewalk along? I mean, you just kind of stop it right there in the middle of nowhere. What is the rationale there? Why not continue it all the way around that wooded area?
I think it was reduced infrastructure costs, nothing, I mean, we're not trying to not provide sidewalks because there's at least a sidewalk on one side of the street. That's the only reason.
Chance of providing that.
I mean, I think we can definitely take a look at this and get sidewalks on both sides of the street.
Other than that, I think it's a good project. I think it'll be good for Canton. I'm trusting your numbers in terms of what people want. Although I do question one thing, empty nesters, okay? Older people, aren't they more apt to want to buy than rent? You said that you've got a certain percentage there that you're expecting empty nesters to occupy.
Yeah, we see it in a lot of different ways. We see a lot of rentals with 55 and older. We also see people that are snowbirds that want to go, to the Carolinas or Florida in the winter and then have something that they can easily just lock up, in the winter and go down to Florida and come back, and we see a lot of those as renters in Michigan.
Commissioner Zuber?
Yeah, I have a question, because I thought in the presentation, and I don't remember who said this, but I thought we were talking about the ranch units would be maximum 4 units per building. I think Patrick said that.
Those are the attached.
Yeah, the attached ranch. So is that true that there's only a maximum of 4?
I believe I think all of them are 4-unit buildings based on this site plan here. There might be a 3 but the 4, I think, is the max that we are going.
And I'm asking that because on, I don't know what sheet number this is, but there's a sheet with the plans and elevations of the multi-building, the multi-ranch buildings, and it says, first floor plan, 3-unit and 6-unit similar, and then it says, the bottom floor plan says first floor plan 5-unit similar.
I believe that is a typo,
I thought
so I apologize for that.
No, that's okay. I've never made any typos on my drawings.
Right?
Perfect.
That was something that didn't
I figured that was
get
probably a
caught.
stock thing that just didn't get corrected, but I wanted to make sure. And then, Patrick, I have a question for you. In your presentation, you talked about alleys. And I wanted to clarify, I wanted to understand that better, because I really didn't understand what you meant in your report, and I circled it so I could come back to it, and there's so many pages here. You said all of the units are accessed by the adjacent road and have 2-car front entry garages. We recommend that the Planning Commission consider requiring a design alternative that includes rear alleys due to the narrowness of the unit site areas, similar to the Hamlet development to the north. The alley design may work particularly well in those rear open space areas behind the single-family detached units. Can you help me understand what you're saying?
Yeah, this is designed as kind of a typical detached, single-family residential development where the driveways in the front at the street and all the garages are facing the road, and I think they would all be front entry based on the lot. So the character of the frontage is predominantly driveways and garages. And to the north, in Hamlet, it's a little bit different where there's the main road, but instead of the driveways in the main road, there's the front porch, there's a sidewalk to the front sidewalk, and the units are actually accessed through a back alleyway that goes behind the units. So it takes up a little bit more of the open space, but as you walk down the street or drive down the street, there's not as many driveway sidewalk conflicts, and when you look at the house from the street, you're looking at the front yard and the front door as opposed to the driveway and the garage. So given that it's next door to the Hamlet has that type of product, we had recommended that the applicants had considered that, and they did note that based on its additional infrastructure costs, its additional open space that you're putting in, the alleys, potential impacts on natural features, which we understand, but nevertheless, we wanted that design concept to be considered.
So you meant throughout the whole development that they at least think about this?
Yeah, or in certain areas where it may make more sense for the rear entry and through the alleys.
And I see both sides of that. I don't like walking down the street and seeing snout houses or big garages facing the street, but I also, you're doubling the pavement area and the runoff, and it just seems like that's a lot of extra paved area that could affect stormwater.
Plus you run into the potential for conflicts with dumpster pads and transformers and all that blocking.
Well, there's that.
I don't want to revisit that.
No, in general, I think this is a great idea. I think that I support having more rental options in Canton, especially that look this nice. So, good project. Thank you.
Commissioner Egenberger.
Thank you. Yeah, one of the things that's happening right now in Canton is that we are looking at our master plan. For any of you that have seen the signs out there and the comments, we welcome any thoughts you have. But one of the things that I've noticed on some of them is asking for more rental units. So that is great that that's something that this will be able to help. I concur with what has been said to a lot of people. I drive on Geddes, and it does concern me to have this many more cars from this area getting on that road. I think that that's a real concern. Another area that I just wanted to talk to, I don't know, Patrick, if you know the answer to this, who does, but on page 36, if you see, and I know that you've tried to kind of work around the wetlands and such, but it seems like there's this whole section that there is building on, and there's these little pocket of wetlands, and maybe I'm not understanding quite what's going to be done with those, but yeah, it looks like there's houses going right on top of them. Yeah, right there. So where your little hand is, if it goes down a little bit, you can see all these little pockets that are called wetland.
Did you just say Patrick has a little hand?
Well, no, I was referring to
Oh.
the one on there. Yeah, there. So if you could just help me understand what's going on with those, because when I look at the buildings, it looks like they're right on top of it.
Yeah, and the applicant can speak to that, but they've done a wetland inventory, and some of those are noted as regulated wetlands according to Eagle. And I believe it's calculated within their wetland impacts in terms of those wetlands that are impacted as a result of building the homes and the roads.
Can I add to that? So, yes, we did do a wetland study. Those are very tiny areas. I know it's hard to tell on something of this scale. I think it's definitely under an acre of wetland impact that we're filling. The majority of the wetlands on site, which is over 10 acres, we are not touching, and we're avoiding completely. So there's just those few small wetlands in the middle of the site that is unavoidable, but the DEQ will require us to mitigate for that. So we'll have to either buy into a wetland bank or mitigate on site. So we are trying to avoid the wetlands as much as possible. These are just some very few small ones that are kind of in the middle of the site.
How will that affect, the neighbors and the water runoff and anything like that?
The wetlands?
'Cause won't you have to fill it in or something?
There-
What
I
do you
mean,
do?
It will be filled. These small wetlands will be filled. Some of these will be filled in. For the most part, the large wetlands, all those large wetlands are not being touched. These should not affect neighbors, but, I mean, we have to do a whole drainage study where we make sure we are not affecting, any of our neighbors with negatively with any drainage. So we have to account for all of that when we do these final plans.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Commissioner Watkins.
I guess she thought they didn't want to hear from me. No. I'll be quick, guys. We've been in here for quite some time. I don't know, Howard, these questions might be directed to you. BTR, the build to rent, is, the relatively new asset class, right? We my colleagues and I, we call it the COVID asset class because what it does, and that's kind of a good name because it allows for like home-like spaces for folks who want to rent now that might have previously been in multifamily buildings, right? Now you get a chance to spread out a little bit. And if you don't want to become a homeowner, you can do this. It's really popular and it's advantageous among REITs right now. You can do IRRs anywhere from 10, 15, 20% right now. So I have no questions about them flipping it at any point to sell. It'll do very well as a rental at this time. So not a concern of mine. Lease rates, $1.70 a square foot. I think I saw in the market study. I don't have a problem with that. I think Ann Arbor to the west of us is about $2, and here in Canton, that's probably pretty appropriate. But full lease up, 38 months is what I saw in the market study. That's a long time. Talk to me about phasing on this project. Where are you going to start? Where are you going to end it? That's quite a bit of time for folks to kind of deal with getting this thing at full bore. So I'll stop right there, and I have like 2 more things, and then I'll be done. So go ahead.
Okay, first, Bill or Nikki, did we put on a phasing plan?
There is a phasing plan.
Is there a phasing plan?
Just pulling it up. Hold on.
Yeah, we probably, it's probably more based on construction than it is the demand. right? So if we build about 100 a year, we'll take about a 4-year build-out, 120 a year, 3-year, you know, so that's what it's more on the time it takes to build. I think that if we could build them all, I think we would lease them up pretty quickly.
Got it. And then if you care to share, the land ownership structure, is it owned by the REIT? Or like, do you have a right of first refusal right now?
It'll be all owned by the REIT.
I'm sorry?
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. It's,
No, go ahead.
owned by the REIT. They're putting in 100% of the money, and the son will own it.
Just for everybody, it's on the first sheet here, there is 2 phases, and we're planning to do some of the attached and the detached in both phases. This first phase, it's showing 22 to 23, and then the phase 2, 24, 25. So this is actually showing it a little quicker, but, I mean, that would be site work, and then eventually building the houses, and then filling the houses will probably take additional years, which is what the market study showed.
Got it. And then, a couple more things. Just efforts, I mean, this gentleman, I think, you know, talk to me about efforts. Are there any efforts to acquire the ancillary properties that are at the south side of Getty's right there? It's kind of like, I don't know, they're just there. Have you thought about being able to acquire those 4 lots that would come into play? And we just talked about the traffic issues. I don't know if you guys have a response about that yet or not.
You know, the site is, you know, fairly large. We haven't thought about acquiring more. If one of the neighbors didn't want to be there, we clearly entertain that.
Good, I just want to let that breathe for a second. Real good. And then the last thing is, wow, the corner of Getty's and Denton, right? You know, I lived and Jeff, good to see you, man. I lived at the corner of Getty's and Beck probably 20 so years ago. There was a flashing red light there. I don't know. We've got to have a ton of cooperation with Wayne County to make that corner do anything right. Right now, you've got the daycare. You've got so much happening right there. I got to tell you, I'm not a fan of being able to do this development on that corner if we don't have full cooperation with Wayne County to get all of the traffic infrastructure in place in conjunction with this. In that, you're talking about plus 400, 500. What are we doing? 1 car per unit at least. That's a ton of traffic on that corner. And I really hope, and I'm not going to hold anything up, I really hope that by the time this gets really good legs, that someone from Wayne County is going to come in, they're going to lock arms with you, and they're going to say, we are good with this. We're going to make the improvements in here to make this not congested, to not make it troublesome. We've talked about this many times, and we definitely need for that to happen at this juncture. We really want to see something like this. I mean, it's a great asset class. It's emerging. But if it doesn't work logistically, then we don't need to do it. That's all the comment I have. Thank you.
The good thing is, we're in agreement that if the road network doesn't work, it's not good for us, it's not good for the township, it's not good for the residents. So, we play by the rules, and I've worked with Wayne County a lot. I've done a lot of road improvements. I've done signalization, and we'll be in, contact with with Wayne County Road Commission, and we'll work with them through all their rules, and we play by the rules.
Okay.
One thing to add to that, our traffic study says that we do have to do some improvements at that intersection for our project beyond what's happening already. So I think if you zoom in there, Patrick, it's even shown on this at the main intersection, but or maybe it's on the sheet 3. Sorry, sheet 3, it shows it, but we do have, you can see it. There's some right-hand turn lanes we have to put in, and there's also an additional, obviously there's a signal there now, but an additional signal that we need to add there that per our traffic study. So we already know we need to make improvements there, and we definitely will be working with Wayne County.
Thank you very much for that. And to Commissioner Watkins' concern about the residents that they had to build on. Whenever a project has come before us, and I see that there are people that are not going to sell out their land to become part of that project, I always think that's a statement on how happy they are to live in Canton. So I look at the positive on something like that. Anybody else have any comments from the commission? Anything?
Just real quick, going back to wetlands issues or wetland type issues, with Fowler Creek here, I know that there's, maybe you can touch on a little bit, what efforts will be not, so that none of that is damaged, and no erosion that goes into Fowler Creek, because it's, flooding around this area with the Rouge tributaries and all that has become a bigger problem, and now we're gonna have a more impervious surface throughout here. I wouldn't wanna see any damage done to that.
We completely agree with you. Also, we have, part of the Eagle permitting for the wetlands will include the floodplain of Fowler Creek, and there will be a lot of stipulations for what we need to do around there to preserve it and soil erosion wise and otherwise. So we are in agreement.
Going back to the concern, Commissioner Weber initially mooted about if the BTR doesn't succeed, can we make the PD, them come back to the PDD so that, we don't give it a pass and it cannot automatically be a different kind of project?
Yeah, that is something that we can write into the PDD. The plans would require some modifications to eliminate the lot lines or maybe have an exhibit that is illustrative only, but we can put language in the PDD that requirement for rent, and if it goes to an ownership model, the PDD must be amended. And we can work with the applicant and with our township legal counsel on getting the right language for that.
Thank you, I would appreciate it. Yeah.
That something that would be required in a motion?
I think that would be appropriate, because if it's in a motion, then it would carry forward to the board in terms of that recommendation, and either the plans to be revised before it goes to the board, or the board could consider that condition and then they revise it at final PDD.
Okay. Well, having said that, is there a motion forthcoming?
I guess I'll give it a shot.
Read all those numbers, please.
You can just say the subject parcels.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Chairman, I move to recommend preliminary approval of the Creekview Landings Plan Development District on the subject parcel numbers listed on the agenda, as provided in the plan development agreement and plan documents, subject to the following conditions. One, that the plans show the improvements noted in the traffic impact study to the satisfaction of Canton Township's Engineering Services Division and Wayne County. Two, that the minimum front yard setback separation distance between the sidewalk and the front of the garage be at least 22 feet. Three, that units 172 through 229 be designed with at least 50% brick. Four, that the plans and PD agreement must include a complete schedule of regulations and modifications. Five, that the applicant starts the process of obtaining easements from owners on Geddes Road and Denton Road where sidewalk gaps will be created as a result of the project, and that the applicant provide information on whether sidewalk construction is feasible within the existing right-of-way on each parcel where there will be a sidewalk gap. Six, that the gravel trail be shown at least 10 feet wide. Seven, a tree survey, landscape plan, and draft prairie restoration and management plan be provided prior to final PDD review. And eight, that minor changes and corrections be made to the PD plans and PD agreement as noted by staff. And I'll add a ninth, that in the event the model of the development changes from a single-family rental development to an ownership model, that any amendments to the PDD must come to the Planning Commission for review.
How about 10, that sidewalks on both sides of all streets?
And, sure, and 10, that it be reviewed that sidewalks be installed on both sides of all streets within the development.
Support.
All right, we've got a motion on the floor by Commissioner Weber and support by Commissioner Zuber. Any further discussion, additions, or concerns? Hearing none, seeing none, Commissioner Zuber, would you call the vote on that, please?
Sure. Commissioner Acharya?
Yes.
Commissioner Eggenberger?
Yes.
Commissioner Foster?
Yes.
Commissioner Okan?
Yes.
Commissioner Watkins? Yes. Commissioner Weber?
Yes.
Commissioner Zuber, yes, and Chairman Green.
Yeah, it's a yes from me as well.
So we'll get to
Thank you, guys.
We'll get to talk about fun things like traffic again when they come back for final approval, right?
Yes, definitely.
Such a geek.
All right, moving right along here. Anybody need a nap before we proceed?
Yes.
My sugar's getting low, maybe a snack.
Our second agenda item for the evening is Harvest Creek, where we're considering rezoning. This is for property located on the east side of Ridge between Proctor and Cherry Hill. Patrick, could you give us more detail?
Sure, thank you. The applicant proposes to rezone two parcels located on the east side of Ridge Road between Payne Street and Proctor Road. As you can see there on the map, it's better? Okay. So it's just south of Payne Street and just north of Proctor. I'll bring up the aerial map. I think that's going to be a little bit better. So you can kind of see where it's north of Proctor and it's adjacent to River Hill Ridge. The proposal is to rezone the site from RR rural residential to R3 single-family residential. The property is 7.1 acres and includes the lower River Rouge on the south side of the property. The applicant proposes to construct a detached single-family residential development on the north side of the site if the rezoning is approved. When River Hill Ridge was developed, River Hill Ridge included much of this property south of the development near Proctor Road along the river course. And as part of that planned development for River Hill Ridge, they had preserved a large portion adjacent to the river and a lot of the wooded area. Our expectation would be that if this site were rezoned to R3, they would have a similar development concept because clustering typically makes sense. And on the north side of the lot, as indicated on one of the plan exhibits, is the higher ground. It slopes down quite a bit as it gets to the river. And then there's wetlands. I think there's floodplain area and heavily wooded areas. So it's more advantageous both for the developer and the community that if the project is rezoned, that the development would be concentrated on the north side of the site, similar to River Hill Ridge because it has the same topographic and natural features of the adjacent site. Section 27.06D4 of the zoning ordinance consists of 10 standards of review to be considered prior to action. Based on our review of the application materials, the comprehensive plan and the site, staff finds that the application meets each of the 10 rezoning standards of review as indicated in our staff report. And in the interest of time, I won't go through each one. They're in our staff report. But the one I do want to note is on the future land use plan, the site is classified as 3 units per acre. So the proposal of an R3 is consistent with the density that's recommended in the master plan. Additionally, we cite 3 rezoning cases to the east, which were rezoned a few years ago to create River Hill Ridge. In those cases, the sites were RA rural agriculture, and they were zoned to R3 for the creation of River Hill Ridge. And they are also in the same future land use classification as the subject site, which is at 3 units per acre. The last thing that I'll note is that the site is not in the Cherry Hill Village Overlay District. It's just south. In fact, River Hill Ridge to the east is not in Cherry Hill Village, although it was designed with the architectural characteristics of Cherry Hill Village so that it would look consistent, but it doesn't have the same density characteristics that are allowed in Cherry Hill Village. So with that, staff's recommendation on the rezoning is a recommendation of approval, and we'll be happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Patrick. Is project representative here for that? And while he's coming up, this is a public hearing. So do I hear a motion to open the public hearing?
So moved.
Support.
All right, we've got a motion to open the public hearing by Commissioner Zuber and support by Commissioner Acharya. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Welcome.
Thank you.
Have anything to add to what Patrick has said?
Well, I think, as usual, Patrick's done a pretty thorough job. I will say that they did share with us some concerns that some of the neighbors in River Hill Ridge have had apparently over a period of time that appeared to me to stem from runoff from our site entering their backyards. And so just to get out in front of that, we would be collecting our stormwater in our own system and discharging it south into the river and removing any runoff from our site is going to be collected in our system and discharged through the, something compliant with Wayne County's stormwater management ordinances, and should hopefully no longer be a problem for these people.
Thank you very much. And this is a public hearing, so is there anyone from the audience that would like to say a word? Have any questions on the project? Yes, going up, sir, to the podium.
Yeah, the name is Richard Brown. We live at 5090 Proctor. It's on the opposite side of the Rouge, the opposing side, where this, I guess, this southern development, if you want to call it that, I just want to be clear. There's a black line that separates the two, the northern and the southern. Are we stating that we're not going to build in the southern portion because of floodplains and trees in the Rouge?
The black line is simply a parcel line. There are two parcels proposed for rezoning. There's a northern parcel and a southern parcel. When we note the northern part of the site, we're not specific to the parcels. We're just generalizing the northern part of the site without, respect to a parcel line or anything in particular.
Right now, we're just here to ask for the rezoning, so we haven't put forth a site plan, but as Patrick described, we would be looking probably to utilize the plan development section of the ordinance, which would allow us to leave, cluster the site more to the north end in the usable open area, and we have no intentions whatsoever of proposing anything down by the river or south of the river at all, except for a stormwater outlet to the river. So that line is actually pretty close to where that would be.
Understood. No, it has to be clear on a map. This is not clear because it does not take into consideration the presence of the Rouge, the floodplain of the Rouge, and then the actual, shall I say, dimension from the edge of the floodplain to where you begin housing. So I think that has to be laid out, that southern portion, because my concern is the majority of that below the black line is really unbuildable from what I can see. I don't know if you have any comments about that.
At this point, because we're dealing with a rezoning request, we're not into specifics of design in terms of, mitigation of any wetlands or anything like that. That would come if this is approved, if this rezoning is approved and any subsequent projects are proposed in that area. In other words, what you're asking for would not be presented tonight on this request, not usually.
He is correct. There are features down in the, which you can see on this plan down there, that we do not intend to impact, except, as I said, for a stormwater outlet. So all of our development would be well north of those lines, and we're also subject to a water course buffer, which in the case of the Rouge is even larger than your normal water course buffer by Canton Township's ordinances. But I can't remember, I think it's 50 feet, Patrick?
75.
75. So, and that's from, I believe, the top bank.
Yeah.
So we have to stay off of that, except again for a stormwater pipe, but that's it.
So those are engineering items that would come forward if this project goes forward.
Things we would certainly take into consideration, yeah.
So I guess you may have already answered the next question because this is, I guess, early phase planning. I did contact the Department of Michigan Environment about this area, but they are not aware of this plan whatsoever. I don't know if they, at this stage, they would be contacted because of the presence of a river there, or how does that handled?
So the state regulates a couple of features that are present on this site, one being the river, as it's a river, And there are wetlands that we've had located on here, and because of their proximity to the river, those are also regulated. We will need to get a permit from the state to put the stormwater outlet down there near the river, in addition to filling that one small wetland that exists on what's otherwise the upland open portion of the site, which is like a stagnant pond, really, but it's a regulated feature nonetheless, and it requires a permit. So as we move forward with design stuff, that is something we will have to apply to the state for.
Right. So the other one is the two other big concerns, or rather one that can be labeled as, is the road system, because firstly, there's probably going to be an entrance onto Ridge Road from this property development. My big concern, obviously, that is a very dangerous bend. There's a lot of fatalities on that bend and on the Ridge Road that actually goes, the bridge that goes over the Rouge. That's the first thing. But also, I believe that I've seen on the map, initial planning, that the Proctor Road was going to be reshaped, the end of it, which is currently not paved. I don't know if that's part of the same development.
The property we're considering here doesn't quite make it all the way down to Proctor Road, and we are not part of anything to do with realigning Proctor Road. And as far as our entrance, we are trying to keeping our entrance as far north as we possibly can, just, as we would have sight distance issues with that curve and other considerations. So I don't know anything about Proctor Road.
Understood. I guess the question I had is, probably I should have phrased it this way, is Proctor, where it enters onto Ridge, we were given an initial map discussing this Harvest Creek development. It specifically showed a change in Ridge Road, or in Proctor as it entered onto Ridge. And I guess my question is that part of this development, or is it not part of this development, or am I misunderstanding something? Right there, yeah, you can.
So what's shown on the zoning map is following the hand, that's the right-of-way of Proctor Road. And the dark bold line, that's the zoning district line that delineates between two zoning districts. So to the north is the RR district. So this thick black line, that's just a line to delineate the zoning district. So then south of this black line is the RA district.
Okay. So yeah, all we're dealing with tonight is the density level that they could propose. There's a lot of issues, obviously, with design and with engineering that would have to go forward if this project goes forward. And so in terms of the development or redevelopment or changes to Proctor, that would be a Wayne County issue, wouldn't it?
Correct. Yeah, Proctor Road and Ridge Road, they're both under the jurisdiction of Wayne County.
Is there something that's about to go? I was not aware of any particular rerouting or changes. Is that something that you know about that's
I think he saw this map, Mr. Chairman. I think he saw that map, and he was thinking that was going to
okay, so I thought I thought you were dealing with something that was actually ongoing, but you're just looking at the lines on the map.
Well, the way the map.
Yeah, I see what we.
The map might be misleading, but my understanding was it would be reshaped.
Okay, all right, no, okay.
Yeah, because if you look at the aerial photo instead of this, it shows actual Proctor Road goes right where that dark black line is, and there's something called New Proctor Road that's drawn over green.
Yeah,
So I see the confusion there.
Yeah, so what that is, so as the map showed, that's the right-of-way line. So if there's ever a construction of Proctor Road, there's right-of-way there to do that. And then if I misspoke, I'll clarify that here, is that farther north, and it does appear to follow the zoning line, is the current Proctor Road, which is gravel. So I do see the issue here of having the existing road, and then there's a right-of-way placed out there for for this new Proctor Road. I'm not aware of any imminent plan to construct within this new Proctor Road right-of-way and to realign it, but I'll follow up with our engineering division to see if they know the history and perhaps the future plan for something in that right-of-way.
But this proposal has nothing to do with that. This would be something that's undertaken by Wayne County, if that happens. But they haven't actually started to do that.
Not to my knowledge. And this proposal for the rezoning is unrelated to what may happen with that road.
Yes, ma'am.
Well, that took care of one of my questions, but the other one is why do we have to be rezoned? I'm right on the corner there of Ridge and Proctor. Why do we need to be rezoned with that? Why can't we be left as rural? We're at the very corner there. We have the pie-shaped area right on the end there.
Designated a beauty zone right now?
Yes. That's what they've shown us on this little map they gave us.
The hashed area on the zoning map, that shows the two parcels that are proposed for rezoning. And there's nothing proposed here at the corner of Proctor and Ridge.
So, yeah. Okay. Anyone else from the audience? Okay.
Chairman, I move to close the public hearing.
All right, we've got a motion to close the public hearing by Commissioner Zuber and support by Commissioner Eggenberger. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, from the commission. Start down at this end. Commissioner Watkins, any comments, concerns, questions, anything?
No, Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Eggenberger? Commissioner Zuber?
None.
None?
None.
Oh, okay.
Your turn.
All right, my turn.
I
Yes.
thought you were taking a deep breath before you raised a whole bunch of concerns.
No, I have no concerns. I was looking at the 10 questions, and it seems as though they have answered those successfully, so I have no problem with this issue of rezoning. Commissioner Weber?
No questions.
Commissioner Okan?
No questions, thank you.
Commissioner Foster?
No questions, thank you.
The only question I have is historically in the past, during the public comment section, we have requested the person commenting to introduce themselves and mention their address, and I don't think we've done that today, so are we deviating from?
did.
Oh,
Yeah,
you
he
did,
did.
okay,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
I'm sorry about that, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Yes, I am the owner of the property. Evan Priest is the engineer.
Oh, okay. All right.
No, we're done with the
We're
public
good.
hearing, sir.
Thank you. Yep.
Uh,
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like
Yes.
to make a motion.
Well, have at it.
I move to recommend approval of the request to rezone said parcels from RR Rural Residential to R3 Single Family Residential, as the proposal meets the standards of Section 27.06 subsection D4 of the zoning ordinance as stated in the staff report.
Support.
All right, we've got a motion on the floor by Commissioner Zuber and support by Commissioner Eggenberger. Any further discussion?
Did we do that right, Patrick? I don't want us to get our hands slapped at the township board again.
It's not a denial.
No.
I think it covered it.
No further discussion?
No offense,
Commissioner Zuber, would you call the vote, please?
Certainly. Commissioner Charya?
Yes.
Commissioner Eggenberger?
Yes.
Commissioner Foster?
Yes.
Commissioner Okan?
Yes.
Commissioner Watkins?
Yes.
Commissioner Weber?
Yes.
Commissioner Zuber, yes, and Chairman Green.
Yes. Good luck to you.
Thank you very much.
Our next agenda item of the evening is BJ's Wholesale Club Gas Station, where we're considering a PDD amendment for parcel, which the property is located on the north side of Ford Road between Morton Taylor and Sheldon. Proposed use is an automobile filling station with amendments proposed to the existing PDD agreement. Patrick, could you give us more detail, please?
Sure, thank you. The applicant is BJ's Wholesale, and as you know, they've recently opened up at the old J.C. Penney building. And it's a retail superstore that will occupy the site, much like JCPenney did. And this was before the Planning Commission a few months ago. And the Planning Commission reviewed some minor building changes, some minor site changes, along with a PD amendment to allow for BJ's Wholesale. So specifically, the site is on the north side of Ford Road, between Sheldon Road and Morton Taylor. And BJ's now proposes to construct an automobile filling station, i.e. a gas station, on a vacant portion of the parcel to the south, which is currently heavily vegetated. Both the current site and the plan for JCPenney was approved in 2007 pursuant to the PD. The current PD agreement permits retail superstores and was amended in 2021 for BJ's Wholesale Club. So BJ's now proposes an amendment to the PD agreement to allow for the gas station on the subject site that's outlined in yellow on the map. The applicant also proposes the following 6 terms to the PDD amendment. The first is that the gas station will be ancillary to BJ's Wholesale Club or a successor user and will be available only to members of BJ's Wholesale Club or the successor user. Second, the gas station must comply with the requirements of the zoning ordinance for automobile filling stations in section 6.02C unless variances are approved. Third, the hours of operation for the gas station will be limited to between 6:30 a.m. and 10 p.m. Monday through Saturday and 6:30 a.m. to 8 p.m. Sundays. Fourth, there will be no outdoor amplification or speaker system at the gas station. Fifth, the kiosk depicted on the plan shall be for employee usage only and shall not involve or facilitate in any way the sale of any retail items other than fuel from the respective pumps. Vending machines or sale of items other than automobile fuel is prohibited, and the restrooms in the kiosk shall be for employee and contractor use only. And sixth, the open space of the property must be at least 25% per the PDD and the zoning ordinance. If the PDD is approved, the applicant will be required to submit a detailed site plan for the proposed use. So for the land use, the site is zoned C2 and is in the Central Business District overlay. The CBD overlay states that any use listed in the C3 district shall also be considered as a permitted or special land use in the C2 district. In the C3 district, automobile filling stations are a special land use and are limited to the redevelopment of existing stations or stations which are accessory to primary retail sales or retail uses or individual tenants within a shopping center having a gross floor area of over 50,000 square feet and subject to the standards of the zoning ordinance for gas stations. The property is part of the original PDD agreement, which established the entire PDD property, including the property herein as a premier community shopping center with more than 250,000 square feet of buildable area. Therefore, the site is eligible for an application for an automobile filling station. The conditions proposed by the applicant are in the proposed PD agreement that we summarized on the first page of our report. The site is surrounded by commercial land uses. The nearest residential areas are located about 700 feet to the north, which is north of BJ's Wholesale Club, which is slightly illustrated there on the map. I'm not sure we've got all of it. There it is. And also about 600 feet to the east, which is east of BJ's Wholesale Club and north of Target. For the access management and traffic impact, the site currently has direct access to the shared access drives to the north and east that are currently in existence. So there are no new curb cuts onto Ford Road or Morton Taylor or Sheldon. It's just going to use the current access drives that are there. The shared access drive, as you may have seen, is currently in the process of being repaired pursuant to the original PDD agreement that was, or the PDD amendment that was approved in 2021. And the nearest road to the site is Ford Road. It won't have direct frontage on any road. The applicants have submitted a traffic impact assessment for the gas station, which has been reviewed by the township's traffic engineering consultant. The impact study anticipates 47 new trips during the weekday, midday peak hour, 58 new trips during the weekday evening peak hour, and 76 new trips during the Saturday midday peak hour. The township's traffic engineering consultant, Wade Trim, concludes that the traffic generated by the fueling station will not change the level of service or greatly impact the operation of traffic on Ford Road. Many site-generated trips are expected to be pass-by trips of users going to BJ's anyway, rather than new vehicles coming from the roadway just for the sole purpose of using the gas station. Wade Trim also notes that the driveway spacing and parking supply analysis appears reasonable, and that the queuing analysis indicates that queuing of vehicles from the fueling station will not create a problem with the road and storage space available at the site. For the schedule of regulations, the automobile filling station will meet the following standards of Section 6.02C of the zoning ordinance. It'll be a minimum lot area of 1 acre. The lot coverage won't exceed 10%. The front yard setbacks are met for the canopy, the pump islands, and the building. The minimum rear and side yard setbacks are met for the canopy, pump islands, and building. And the ingress and egress drives are a minimum width of 30 feet and do not exceed a maximum width of 36 feet. There's a few parking spaces that are on the plan. There are 3 off-street spaces which are mainly used for employees and contractors. The ordinance requires 2 parking spaces per pump island, which are shown on the plans, each pump island, so that it has 1 space on each side of the pump. So that's how the parking standards are met for gas stations. In addition to, if it had a convenience store, then there would be a retail component for a larger parking lot. But that's not the case here since there's no retail. So the 3 spaces in addition to what's at the pumps are just for employees and contractors. Otherwise, there's no reason for anyone to park there because there's no reason to get out of their vehicle. And as we previously noted, the bathroom is only available to employees and contractors. The architecture of the building on the site consists of the canopy and the kiosk. The kiosk has a flat roof and has a minimum of 50% brick required by the ordinance. The mechanical equipment screening is shown on top of the roof. And the canopy is required by ordinance to be designed and constructed to be architecturally compatible with the main building, including covering the support columns with brick. The canopy has a mansard roof, and all of its columns are covered with brick that matches the kiosk. There's a landscape plan shown on the plans that meet the zoning ordinance. For the lighting, there's not a lighting plan included, but if the PDD amendment is approved, the lighting plan must comply with the ordinance. The same with the signage. The signage it will be reviewed by Building and Inspection Services Division. If the PDD amendment is approved, the signage must comply with the zoning ordinance, and the zoning ordinance limits canopy signage to 8 square feet. For garbage removal, there's not a dumpster that's proposed. It's expected that the site wouldn't generate enough garbage to warrant a dumpster. BJ's Wholesale Club has a trash compactor on the west side of the building, farther on the north side, where we believe the garbage would be taken to. And then finally, the PD agreement has the amendment that meets the township's requirements, and if there's any other remaining questions, we would defer to our attorney. But our attorney has reviewed the agreement, has made suggestions and modifications, which are reflected in the agreement before the Planning Commission this evening. So our recommendation is that if the Planning Commission is satisfied with the land use proposal and the conditions proposed in the PD agreement, then we would recommend approval of the PD amendment for the automobile filling station on the subject parcel, subject to the conditions stated in the PD agreement, or the PD agreement amendment, and subject to compliance with all requirements of the zoning ordinance. If there is additional information required of the applicant, then we would recommend deferring action on pending receipt and review of any additional information required. That concludes our report, and we'll be happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Patrick. Appreciate that. This is a public hearing also?
Mr. Chairman, I move to open the public hearing.
All right, we've got a motion to open the public hearing by Commissioner Zuber and support by Commissioner Okon. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Project representation is here, I see.
Chairman, I've been called worse, so I appreciate that. Brian Amon on behalf of BJ's Wholesale Club. First, thank you for your time and attention. We know you've had an involved agenda tonight. I want to let you know we do have a team of folks here from site design and real estate, whatever questions or traffic questions come up, we'll be prepared to answer those and certainly look forward to that. I want to thank the staff and the administration. This project's been in the works in terms of the entirety of the store for some time. And Patrick, his report was thorough and complete, and including the drive that is under construction and should be done the next 2 to 3 weeks here, holding the weather and everything else works for us. And I'll just say on a personal note, I live in Canton, and I'm excited about the prospect of not having to drive to another community to get gas that is less expensive, the gas that's affiliated with another retail. Between Costco and Kroger or whatever, I've got to drive somewhere, Livonia, Northville, Plymouth, or whatever else like that. And I'll tell you, I forgot to bring with me, but I just emailed to you, Patrick, a petition signed by over 700 and some residents of Canton Township who are Costco, there you go, that first one, who are BJ's members who are supporting this, but we asked them not to come tonight to flood your room. We just asked them to acknowledge that on a petition. So I forwarded that to Patrick so it can be part of the record for the meeting. And with that, we are prepared to really answer any other questions that came up on this. We're mindful of the importance of this site. We're mindful of the need that people have expressed the desire to have this, so we are excited to explore this further, and we're prepared to answer any questions that may come up.
All right, thank you very much for that. With that, we'll go to the audience, find out if there's any questions or concerns from the audience before going to the commission.
Mr. Chairman, I move to close the public hearing.
All right, we've got a motion to close the public hearing by Commissioner Zuber and support by Commissioner Weber. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, so we'll start down here at this end. Commissioner Acharya, did you have any questions or concerns about this project?
No questions.
Commissioner Foster?
No questions.
Okan?
Where's the electric charging stations?
Yeah, well, actually, we'll see some of that. We'll talk about that. We've talked about some of that, actually. They're looking at a national approach across all their stores, but having to work with the local utilities to see what they can actually support at the time. So we're working, it's part of their overall national effort, and the minute we feel comfortable that we can get the support here to get it done through the DTE process, where you'll see that. It's not only a great thing for all of us, but it's a marketing necessity anymore, so yeah. So.
Oh, yeah, I was just teasing you.
No, but keep raising it, keep raising it.
Weber?
No questions.
The only concerns I have, actually, it's a quite a large one, but it could be answered very quickly. When this PDD came before the township in 2004, I believe it was.
Right.
This parcel of land was considered part of the open area calculation.
No, that's, actually, it was not. It was left open at the time, but it was not part of the open space calculation. We still exceed. The township has taken, I think, a great approach to this. They require the project in its entirety maintain the minimum 25% open space, but then each respective development within that also do that. So we have, the staff has gone to great lengths to make sure we've demonstrated that we not only comply, the overall PDD still complies in exceeding with 25%, but this parcel in its own development will also comply with more than 25% open space as well.
Looking at the satellite view of this, this area here, that area was part of the PDD, right?
It was.
That area,
Part of the
yes.
PDD. So that means that was part of the calculation, but what you're saying is that it was greater than 25% at the time?
It was not part of the 25% that we were counting on for the open space calculation. It was left as open space, but it wasn't, and it wasn't, essentially, we had more than 25% open space, you're right, but it was not part of the minimum 25%. This has always been intended to be developed over time based on the thing. So that's why the plan was around the pond area, the other buffering areas, significant buffering along the northern areas and those kinds of things. It was dealt with in those areas, yeah.
All right, that was my major.
By the way, you started right where I stared when it first came up, so we're two of them were around from there, yeah.
A lot of concrete, so I'm glad you answered that for me. And I'm also glad to know that they are going to complete that road, because I drove that about a week ago, and man, I'll tell you, it was pretty big hardship driving through there.
Mr. Chairman, I want to give the township credit for raising that because, you know, it was an item that was, I think, everybody's felt the need for. And particularly as we look in the future at the potential boulevarding of Ford Road, it's going to get a lot more use. And so we need to get it right. so.
The other concern I have is there's not going to be a dumpster, and I understand that there won't be a large accumulation of trash, but there's always trash when it comes to filling stations, whether it be people emptying their baskets from their car into the thing there. There has to be a provision there to empty the trash.
There is. The BJ's, not surprisingly, has a very robust site management, not only the trash cans on site, but all areas of the site. So it'll be folded into that, any respective cans, not only the cans that the staff will have there, any other cans of trash. It'll be part of their overall site management for the store of picking up the bags that'll be in there. It's never going to be anything more than like a large trash bag to be put into whatever else. So they don't need a dumpster on site for that, and we're trying to minimize the impact of those kinds of things on the entirety of the site. So when the people are cleaning up the whole site, it'll be dealt with at the same time.
And my last one is just jumping on Commissioner Okan's concern there, is because when I didn't see any provisions there for the future for EVs, I thought, well, geez, they're kind of missing a window here of opportunity, because that's obviously going to be a thing. Fast charging is going to be a thing, and people are going to need that.
I think you'll see ultimately, the Newman family, which has owned this and helped the develop of the overall PDD, between the Target, the Lowe's and everything, I think you're going to ultimately some kind of effort, not only individually in the parcels, but collaborative for the site. But we've got to get the infrastructure in place to get it there. And so, yeah.
Commissioner Zuber.
I have no questions, thank you.
Commissioner Eggenberger.
I have no questions, thank you.
Commissioner Watkins.
So good to see Brian Amon again on better terms. I remember, look, I get Jeff Goulet and I get Brian Amon both in the same place.
I was surprised to see Jeff tonight too. So.
Yeah, I'll let your brother know I said that I saw you tonight. He's my neighbor. But
oh, good, thank you.
Yeah, it looks like that final piece of green space is takes up the rest of the outlot. I guess the only question I would have is upon completion, and we start to look at any I'll call it innovation, a la electrical charging stations. How do we account for that? Because that's probably going to happen, right? Like, how do we look at what we have in terms of the green buffers on the north side and on the east side of the site, and figure out what happens going forward there, Brian?
Yeah, those will be done within the existing parking spaces and parking lot calculations. We anticipate, if you had the kind of the Google Earth picture of this site, there's actually an area of trees that on the west end of the site that will stay intact.
I saw that.
Will not be interfering with that. And so we don't intend, once we do the construction of this fueling station, any future electrical stations will be put in an existing parking lot and spaces with no incursion into green or open areas.
Thanks, that's all, folks. Thank you.
Okay, any further questions from the commission? Hearing none, seeing none, do I hear a motion?
I move to recommend approval of the PDD amendment for an automobile filling station on parcel number 71-040-99-006-708 at 43690 Ford Road, subject to the conditions stated in the PDD agreement and amendment, and subject to compliance with all requirements of the zoning ordinance.
Support.
All right, we've got a motion on the floor by Commissioner Zuber and support by Commissioner Watkins. Any further discussion? Hearing none, seeing none, Commissioner Zuber, please call the vote.
Sure. Commissioner Acharya? Yes. Commissioner Eggenberger?
Yes.
Commissioner Foster?
Yes.
Commissioner Okan?
Yes.
Commissioner Watkins?
Yes.
Commissioner Weber?
Yes.
Commissioner Zuber, yes, and Chairman Green.
Yes. Good luck to you.
Thank you so much for your time tonight. We appreciate it. Thank you.
Next agenda item of the evening is the Blossom Behavioral Wellness Center. We're considering a special land use for this property, which is located south of Ford Road between Lots and Hicks. Proposed use is Blossom Behavioral Wellness Centers, which consists of the following special land uses: office, medical clinic, office and laboratory, training and/or education center, and accessory childcare. It's a lot of uses. Patrick, could you give us more detail?
Sure, thank you. The site is located, as illustrated on the map, on the south side of Ford Road and east of Lots. It's in the same center as the Guitar Center and the former Gardner White business, north of the Imagine Theater. And Because the site is in the Corporate Park Overlay District, virtually all of the commercial land uses and non-residential land uses and such are classified as special land uses in the district. So whenever there's a proposed use of an existing facility, unless that has specifically been granted a special land use in the past, it has to come before the Planning Commission and the Township Board for consideration of that special land use. The center that is the subject to this request was originally proposed as a retail center, so it was approved as retail, as 100%, and it had functioned as a retail multi-tenant center for a number of years. When Gardner White moved out and they moved down the road to the old Art Van and Love's Furniture building, this left a major vacancy in this building. And the proposed user is Blossom Behavioral Wellness Center. And it's a center that I'm not familiar with, so we had a lot of dialogue with the applicants in terms of what types of uses the center is, just mostly as a way of how to classify it in the zoning ordinance in terms of the allowable uses in the Corporate Park Overlay District. And Blossom Behavioral Wellness Center, I think they also have wellness centers in Brighton and in Novi, and the applicants can provide more information about that. But in looking at the uses that are permitted in the Corporate Park Overlay District, a facility like this would not have been contemplated at the time the zoning ordinance was written in 1990, but the uses are enough in the Corporate Park Overlay District to use a collection of uses that are noted there and then come up with a classification for the facility using several special land uses, which is why it's a combination of number 1, office, number 2, medical clinic, office and laboratory, number 3, training and/or education center, and 4, what we would call as an accessory use is childcare. Childcare would not be the primary use of this. That would be an accessory use, an ancillary use to those other 3 primary uses. And the last thing I'll mention about the Corporate Park Overlay District is, although the underlying zoning is C3 regional commercial, because it has the Corporate Park Overlay District on top of it, the Corporate Park Overlay District is the predominant zoning district wherever it is. The original site plan was approved in 1995 as a shopping center, and there were some subsequent amendments that were approved in 98 and also in 2017, which included some architectural and lighting changes to the building. The only exterior changes to the plan consist of repainting some of the existing painted brick for the proposed Blossom space and creating a new retail entrance on the south side of the western facade for a future retail tenant. Although the future retail tenant is not included on the plan, we had recently received a zoning compliance certificate for Dick's Sporting Goods for a warehouse sales store. It's a little bit different than their primary store where they do warehouse sales. That's just a zoning compliance. Sometimes we get zoning compliance permits and they're approved and nothing happens if an applicant decides not to move forward, but that's just the latest information I have in terms of a prospective retail tenant at this center. The other item I want to note about painting the brick, I know that painting brick has been a subject of discussion for the Planning Commission at several different meetings. The current building was painted a few years ago, and it looks like it was authorized in 2017 for some architectural changes, and that was among the changes was that they had painted the brick. And so what we're dealing with right now is existing brick that's already been painted. What the applicants propose to do is to repaint over a brick that's already been painted by somebody else. The plans for Blossom, they state the following in terms of the use proposal. It states that Blossom Behavioral Wellness offers a multitude of therapy services to children. Therapy and counseling services are typically held between the hours of 8 a.m. and 6 p.m. Monday through Friday, with occasional later hours and weekend events. All children will be walked in by a parent. If a child is receiving one session, the parent often waits in the lobby or nearby. If the child has multiple sessions with different clinicians, then the parent will typically use that time to run local errands and shop in nearby centers. There are no changes to the access management or the parking lot or the loading area. There are some modifications to the architecture. The only changes are the entrance to the Blossom Center that are illustrated, as well as an entrance farther on the south side for a future retail tenant. So there may be another entryway on the south side of the building facing west, just like the other entrances, where there'll be a separate entrance for a new retail tenant. So it'll kind of activate that part of the facade that's just a long blank brick wall right now. There's an existing landscape plan on file. We would administer the landscape plan according to the existing plan on file, so the landscaping would have to be brought up to compliance with the previous plan. The applicant is proposing some changes to the foundation landscaping on the south side where the new retail tenant area would be proposed. It's relatively minor, but I think we can administratively review the landscape changes as long as the foundation landscaping standards are met in terms of the depth and the number of trees and shrubs, which I think can be met. There would be some displacement of some foundation landscaping, but not very many plantings. There's a photometric plan that shows the new building fixtures for the entrance and the future retail tenant entrance. The lighting plan must include the cut sheets of the fixtures and adjust the fixture so that the illumination does not exceed 20-foot candles. This is a very attainable thing, so it's relatively minor. That I don't think requires a major change, and it's attainable. Sometimes we get lighting plans that exceed 20-foot candles based on the fixture, and sometimes they can do the same fixture but just a different intensity, so that's something that can be easily corrected. The wall signage is illustrated on the plan and will be administered by the Building and Inspection Services Division, so we'll defer to the Building Division. There's an existing dumpster enclosure area on the east side of the building that's proposed for use by Blossom. The plans state that the gates will be replaced in accordance with the zoning ordinance. There's also a dumpster located in the loading area on the south side of the building that will not be used by Blossom, but will be used by the future retail tenant of the space on the south side of the building. And the plans note that the future dumpster enclosure on the south side of the building will comply with the zoning ordinance at the time the retail tenant is determined. Finally, Section 27.03C of the zoning ordinance includes several standards of review for special land uses. And in our analysis, we recommend, and we've concluded that we believe that the tenant meets all the standards of review for a special land use at this location. Therefore, our recommendation is approval of the special land uses that consist of an office, medical office, clinic and laboratory, training and/or education center, and accessory child care use on the subject parcel for the reasons stated in the above analysis, subject to the conditions noted in this review and subject to all state, county, and township requirements. That concludes our report, and we'll be happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Patrick. This is a public hearing, so once again, let us open the public hearing. Is there a project sponsor here today?
So moved.
All right, we've got a motion to open the public hearing by Commissioner Zuber and support by Commissioner Okon. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for your time. I'm Jeff Klatt with Krieger Klatt Architects, 2120 East 11 Mile in Royal Oak. And I'm also here with Miss Anna Holmes of Blossom's Children's Center, who can provide some more information about their company and the services they provide. Thank you, Mr. Sloan, for the excellent and very thorough report, so I can really minimize what I'm going to say here, so thank you for that. Much appreciated. So as was previously mentioned, we are seeking special land use approval for the fit-out of this new space, about 26,000 square feet. Granted approval, this will be Blossom's third location, the first being in Novi, and the second was recently completed in Brighton. I think that opened in May, give or take. Blossom will occupy about 26,000 square feet, kind of right smack dab in the middle of the building. We have Guitar Center to the north, and there'll be that proposed future build-out to the south. Exterior improvements are very minimal, signage, painting of the brick, very minimal, maybe a possible addition for the future tenant to the south. And then before I turn it over to Anna to describe Blossom, I'd like to point out that we will comply with the 4 conditions that were mentioned, so we'll adhere to those.
Okay, thank you very much. About Blossom.
Hi, I'm Anna Holmes. I'm going to keep it short because I know we've all been here for a long time, but if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them. So Blossom is a pediatric therapy center where we provide early intervention therapy to children with autism and other developmental disabilities. We provide speech therapy, occupational therapy, physical therapy, ABA therapy, art therapy, and counseling. We're early intervention, so we primarily service children 18 months to 8 years old, as well as their siblings and caregivers, because there's unique challenges that go along with being the sibling and caregiver of someone with developmental disabilities. So we have sibling support groups, caregiver support groups. We do a lot of like events within like the community or locally, just to provide additional like outlets. Like our families really love being able to come together with other parents and other families that are in like a similar situation. We also provide, I'm trying to think what else. We would be bringing probably about 100 jobs to the area, ranging anywhere from someone with a high school diploma, being a behavior technician, all the way up to a master's or PhD level clinician. We think it would be a really great addition to the Canton area. Right now, the prevalence of autism is 1 in 44, and Canton being such a busy, densely populated area, I'm sure there's many, many children that could benefit from our services. Our first location is in Novi, and we were actually in an old furniture store, funny enough, and our second location is in Brighton, and we're in an old Circuit City. So we've kind of turned those spaces around, and they've become really beautiful therapy spaces that our kids and their families love. So I'm happy to answer any questions if you guys have any.
Okay, thank you very much for that. Open the floor with anyone left that might have a question or comment or concern. In that case, do I hear a motion to close the public hearing?
So moved.
Support.
I've got a motion to close the public hearing by Commissioner Weber and support by Commissioner Zuber. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, we'll start down here with Commissioner Acharya.
No questions, thank you.
Commissioner Foster.
No questions, but glad to see something going into this space.
Oh, I think this would be a great reuse of that building. Thank you.
Commissioner Weber.
No questions. I agree with my colleagues on the reuse of this building.
And I agree also. I'm very excited that you're, going to be coming here. Okay, I'll just say that right now. Commissioner Zuber.
Same. I mean, I think it's wonderful to find new uses for big box retailers, so thank you.
Commissioner Eggenberger.
Yeah, great idea. Thanks for coming.
Commissioner Watkins.
No questions. As a dad of a daughter that has developmental disabilities, I understand PT, OT, and ABA. Glad to have you in the neighborhood. Thank you.
Do I hear a motion developing?
Sure. I move to recommend approval of the special land uses for an office, medical clinic, office, and laboratory, training and/or educational center, and accessory childcare use on parcel number 049-99-0001-708, as the request meets the special land use criteria of the Canton Township zoning ordinance, subject to the following conditions. Number 1, a revised landscape plan is required in accordance with Article 5 of the zoning ordinance. Number 2, the lighting plan must be revised to comply with Section 2.13 of the zoning ordinance. Number 3, the signage must comply with Article 6A of the zoning ordinance. And number 4, compliance with all state, county, and township requirements.
Support.
All right, we have a motion on the floor by Commissioner Zuber and support by Commissioner Okan. Any further discussion on this motion? Hearing none, seeing none. Commissioner Zuber, call the vote, please.
Sure. Commissioner Acharya?
Yes.
Eggenberger?
Yes.
Foster?
Yes.
Commissioner Okan?
Yes.
Commissioner Watkins?
Yes.
Commissioner Weber?
Yes.
Commissioner Zuber, yes, and Chairman Green.
Yes. Good luck to you and welcome aboard. Our next agenda item, which is not a public hearing, is Czar Plaza, where we're considering a site plan amendment. This property is located south of Cherry Hill between Denton and Ridge. The proposal is a facade and architectural changes. Patrick, is there more detail to be had?
Yes, thank you. This last came before the Planning Commission on November 29th of last year. And the reason it came to the Planning Commission, there were some architectural changes to the building that were not on the original approved plan. And so at that point, the changes were significant enough where the Planning Commission had to review the plan and make a determination on whether the changes would be acceptable. And what the Planning Commission had reviewed in in November and approved was the rendering here that's shown on the screen. And some of the changes included adding the cornice along the top line of the building, adding some tops to the columns that were both on the column and surrounded the column, as well as some other architectural modifications to complete the plans. That also included a metal awning that's illustrated here on the plans and I think has since been installed, and stucco over the exposed concrete footing. The site improvements are still underway. The Planning Services Division recently inspected the building for compliance with the plans and noticed that the column toppers were different. And we considered them significant enough to have Planning Commission review. Rather than wrapping the top of the columns to be consistent with the cornice, the constructed columns were not changed except for toppers added on top of the columns. And I can show on the proposed plans where instead of having the columns wrapped, they have toppers over them. And I can scroll down a little bit more to some photographs as well. Those are just side elevations. There are, yeah.
Patrick, are those going to be actual flower pots?
I don't believe so. I wouldn't want to be the person that has to weed it and water it and whatnot. So that's what it looks like today. Now the awnings, those have since been covered.
The next photo actually shows the awnings covered in the collection there.
There we go. This one's more representative of what we're looking at. So yeah, the awnings are finished and they have the column toppers there. So given the number of columns, they poke out from the top there quite a bit. It is noticeable. So staff's recommendation is to remove the toppers and permit the remaining brick columns as constructed. The only other alternative we would recommend is to wrap the tops of the columns pursuant to the plans approved by the Planning Commission last November. So that's our recommendation as staff, is to approve the revised plans subject to the removal of the toppers installed over the columns. And alternatively could be to wrap the tops of the columns pursuant to the previously approved plans. So that concludes our comments on this one.
Thank you, Patrick. Commissioner Watkins, any comments or concerns?
No objections, Mr. Chair.
Eggenberger.
Well, I don't think they look very nice not being wrapped. You can see.
Yeah, I agree. I kind of like them myself, but I wanted to hear from other people.
Oh, you like seeing that piece of white just at the edge?
No, I like the pots.
The original wrap was supposed to be actually higher than what's shown.
Yeah.
The cornice was lower, and then the wraps were going to be higher.
I was just concerned that they were actual pots that somebody'd have to get up there and tend to some flowers.
It's actually shown as two different heights anyway.
Oh,
So they didn't dead end together,
right.
so.
Well, I'm not loving the toppers. I'm not loving the edge either, but. Mm-mm.
Commissioner Zuber?
I certainly don't love the toppers. I'm curious, I mean, we talked about this the last time the project came up. I don't know how this happens, where we have approved drawings and then we have contractors building whatever they want. What's the point? So that's my frustration. Why do we have to come back twice to get second second
Is there a project
proposals?
representative here?
Yes.
Like to make a reply to that?
It's just frustrating, because as a planning commission, we have a role to play, but it seems that you're just doing whatever you want at this project.
Mona Hamoud, I am the designer who worked with Atelier Architect when we did the original plans. I also revised the elevation based on the changes that were done during construction. So
You understand the concerns.
Yes.
We've gone through a lot with this project, and we've gone through some approval processes where things were approved, but then not done, and then we're expected to accept them. So I guess that was Commissioner Zuber's concern.
That's my question.
Yes, to my understanding is that during construction, I think the owner was advised by his contractor that this is probably, I don't know what the reason is, maybe it's better for construction. And they did change it during construction, so it's not kind of aligning with what was submitted before. However, I don't know if you have, Mr. Sloan, if you have an image or an elevation of the very original plans that were approved before. The first time we approved the plans in Planning Commission, not this one actually, the very original one, we had a ball that was just a topper on top of these columns. We didn't even have that drive-it or stucco wrapped around the column. So the very original plans had just a topper that looked like a ball that was put on top of the columns. I'm not saying that the actual construction today looks better than what was submitted just recently, but I am just saying that it's not very different from what was originally submitted. There is a topper. Yeah, I agree this looks better, but I don't know if it's an overkill to actually have him demolish already what he had constructed. And it's kind of in line of the very original design that was approved by planning.
I guess what the commissioner's really getting at is why deviate from what has been approved? I guess we're not understanding the process here. That it's.
Well, the issue is, Mr. Chairman, okay, if the contractor advised your client that something wasn't appropriate or should be changed, the proper method was to come into the township and talk to the building department, talk to the planning department, and then possibly come to us. Not just change it on the fly and expect that we're gonna bless off on it. I think, I'm sorry to cut in here, but I think by simply having them remove the toppers, I think we're basically just saying, oh, it's okay, you did what you want and you got what you want anyway, so we're just, I mean, I feel like there's no penalty here for not following the rules. I don't appreciate that, and I don't approve of it. I don't know what plans you're talking about that show a ball on top of the columns. I've not seen that. All I've seen is what's right there, what was originally approved.
That was not originally approved. This set was the second, this is from the
Last
last
time,
time
last
they came
time.
before us to change it, after they'd already done whatever they
I
wanted.
mean, but even the decorative stuff, if I remember right, when you came back in November, there was none of this up here, it was just brick. And the reason we were told then is because we were given reasons because of COVID, because of supply chain issues, and all of that sort of thing. Again, the way to handle that would have been to come into the township and explain that to the building department or the planning department, not just do it on the fly, and then expect us to give forgiveness afterwards. That's all I have to say, Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Okan?
Did we want to hear from gentlemen?
Sure, come on up, sir.
Anwar Zar, I'm the part owner of that project, okay? I consult with the planner, Mr. Sloan, for all the details from the profile of the cornice, which we use on the toppers, the same, to the metals, to the specification, to the benches I'm gonna put outside, to the garbage cans, and this is the only thing that went wrong, because of the contractor. He does the job all the time, and he suggests to do it that way, and he did it. I don't know. You can.
Contractor was wrong, yeah, because there was a reason.
Yeah,
There was a reason for the approval process, and it should have been complied with.
Does everything right. It's not like we say, oh, we'll give you a pass on a couple things. You do everything that is told.
Yeah, I supposed to do that, but, this is the only thing that happened.
It's your project, you're responsible.
Yeah,
It's not the only thing that happened, because you've already been before us once to ask forgiveness.
Yeah, I'm the driver. I'm supposed to be in control of my car, I know, but some things I can explain. I do whatever you want. This is the last item before I get the CFO, as I understand. Okay, if you want me to remove them, I can remove them. To me, they look okay, you know. I came from a society where we know Pierre Gardin, Christian Dior, Lanvin, all those, you know. Now the era is different. I know the design fits together. Before I came here, you notice my accent, the country I lived in, we had all the civilization, from the Babylonian to the Assyrian to the Chaldean to the Persian to the Ottoman Empire. And you go there, you see all these remains, you know. And everyone is a little different, okay? But I don't see any problem with those topper with this design, you know.
I understand.
I understand the agriculture. I'm not a architect or engineer, but you know, it's nothing wrong with that. But if you want me, I take them out. It doesn't matter, you know.
We just want you to understand there's a process to go through, and if you deviate from that process, it potentially causes a lot of problems. And so
Yes.
that's why you're getting what you're getting from the commission today.
Everything else, I followed the rules, you know. I didn't do anything except that thing. This is that's what
Just
I'm
remember
here
this, the
for.
contractor works
That
for you.
little thing, I mean,
You don't work for the contractor. The contractor works for you.
yeah, but, so, I don't know. Sorry if you know, I'm trying to,
All right, so
but
cutting to the
I'm trying to
chase.
explain myself, you know, that's it.
What's,
Do the rest of the commissioners have anything to say?
I'm sorry?
Do the rest of the commissioners have anything to say?
Okay.
Personally, I think that the 99% of the intent of what we wanted is here. I don't have a problem with it, honestly.
Okay, with what's there right now, this
Yes.
proposal? Okay, Commissioner Foster.
I agree with Commissioner Zuber and Commissioner Weber. I think, you know, if you want to make changes, you come to the planning department and you ask if we can make changes to the plan. At this point, it's, you know, a waste of your resources, a waste of your time, a waste of the staff's time, and a waste of the commission's time that we have to keep revisiting this. And so, yeah, I agree with Commissioner Zuber and Commissioner Weber.
Yeah, I too agree with Commissioner Sommer. It's kind of redoing and expensive for everybody, right? So it's a waste of time.
What is the commission's pleasure? Do we go back a phase to original design, or what do we do? Any thoughts, concerns?
I would like to see those removed, the toppers removed, and just leave
Like
it,
no toppers? Okay.
leave it with the brick columns with no termination at the top other than the little limestone cap or whatever material that is, and just get rid of the toppers.
That's right. I hate this middle piece. It looks like it was put on as an afterthought.
It was. You mean the cornice on the middle?
Yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't look like it was done the way the drawing was either, but.
That'd be my suggestion. I mean, so basically what Patrick is suggesting.
I thought Patrick was suggesting taking off the little toppers and not changing that middle cornice.
Oh, was he?
Right.
Yeah, just the column toppers.
Well, that's substantially similar to the drawing that we approved last year, so I don't know that I would support that, but.
If you remove the middle piece.
Can I say something?
Off to the side like that, I don't know, it's like a crowning type of look. Purpose is there.
I would be fine with the removal of the toppers. I don't have an issue with the middle piece.
So we're pretty much in agreement, no topper, that's for sure. So then it gets down to that middle piece. What do you want to see there?
Well, if the majority of the commission is okay with it, then just put it up to a vote.
I mean, I'm not crazy about the way it was executed, but that is more or less what we asked for at the last hearing.
I agree.
I think since we were asking the applicant to be consistent with the plans, I sort of think we need to be as well.
Okay.
But I don't think this, I'm just really agitated about this whole project.
Yeah, well, I think we all are.
I just want to get through it. We've seen this enough.
Well, the problem is, Mr. Chairman, is this is down in Cherry Hill Village, which gets a lot of attention and focus anyway, and it's right on Cherry Hill. So I don't want to just give it short shrift and say, you know, okay, do whatever you want, and we let it go. So I just want to make sure that we're doing the right thing as a commission and that sort of thing. And that said, it doesn't deviate. I mean, it's okay, I guess. I mean, I'll live with it.
So from an architectural standpoint, is that too dominating, that centerpiece? I think we're all in agreement to take the toppers off, right, and just have those caps. But that centerpiece, is that too much?
I mean, like I said, that's what we voted to approve back, when was that? The last year in November, at the end of November.
You gotta remember, you're looking at it with no building signage too.
Right. I thought you said building science at first, and I was like, wow, this is an impressive conversation.
Never know.
Signage.
All right.
The bottom here is the original 2016 elevation. They were originally looked at by the Planning Commission last October and November, just to illustrate what was originally approved versus what was constructed. So they're not in the packet tonight, but this kind of illustrates that top cornice where this is the original intended design, the one that was approved in 2016, and then that's in the photograph what they constructed.
So the columns originally were going to be ephes or stucco or something with a more detailed topper with the ball on the top.
They did have the ball, but they were wrapped also.
Plan does look somewhat similar to what's there, but.
So what we're looking at then is simply removing the toppers and having that cornice piece dominate the front. Is that everybody's understanding? Is that acceptable? I guess that's what it gets down to. We're having to kind of modify our procedures here.
Can I add a comment, please?
Yes, go ahead.
So I guess previously, before we added that cornice on the top, it was just all brick and the whole entire facade. And the reason why the planning, Mr. Sloan suggested to add that is just to kind of like cut from this massiveness of the wall. So it did look like a very high building, all brick, very massive. So the fact that they added this cornice on the top actually made it a little bit less massive. And that's what we were trying to avoid. Because if we remove that cornice from the center wall, it's just going to look too high.
Plus, we approved the drawing on the bottom originally, which had a cornice, so that's what we were expecting to see constructed.
So that's basically, your motion, right, is basically just saying take off the toppers?
Correct.
We need a motion.
I move to approve the site plan amendment on parcel number 073-99-0005-713, subject to the removal of the toppers installed on the columns.
Support.
Okay, we've got a motion on the floor. I was daydreaming.
You were doodling, weren't you?
Got a motion on the floor by Commissioner Zuber and support by Commissioner Foster. Any further discussion on that motion? Commissioner Zuber, would you call the vote, please?
Sure. Commissioner Ataria?
Yes.
Commissioner Eggenberger?
Yes.
Commissioner Foster?
Yes.
Commissioner Okon?
Yes.
Commissioner Watkins?
Yes.
Commissioner Weber?
Yes.
Commissioner Zuber, yes, and Chairman Green.
Yes. Okay.
Good night.
Heard it from us.
For your time.
Okay. Go forth and be successful. All right.
Don't come back.
For this project.
Okay, for this project, right. All right, our next agenda item, the Meadows of Cherry Hill, where we are looking at, pull it up here, we're considering a site plan amendment. This property is located on the west side of Ridge Road and between Salts and Cherry Hill, and the proposed changes to the facade of the corner homes. Patrick, could you give us more detail, please?
Yes, thank you. In 2021, the Township Board and Planning Commission approved the final site plan for the Meadows of Cherry Hill. It's a planned development. It's got 38 units on just under 16 acres on the west side of Ridge between Salts and the ITC corridor. The project is located in the village edge portion of the Cherry Hill Village Overlay District, so it is required to meet the Cherry Hill Village design standards. It doesn't have to have the 50% brick, but it does have to meet those design elements of the village. When the plan development and the final site plan were approved, the color elevations for the corner lots, as well as the two lots that face Ridge Road, consisted of additional detail on the non-primary street side. That included a wraparound porch, additional windows, window planter boxes, and gable vents. Although the color elevations were approved as an exhibit to the PD agreement and as part of the final site plan to show the design intent, there was not a specific condition of what details were required on the street sides of those corner units and those units facing Ridge Road. On the approved site plan, the approved final site plan, many of these units, they have a driveway that is closest to the corner. So I'll kind of illustrate an example of what we mean here. So units 1 and 3, those are the units that are closest to Ridge Road. And there's a deep landscape area between the units themselves and Ridge Road, where there's a landscaping frontage buffer proposed, as well as additional evergreens adjacent to the homes. And as you see on the approved site plan, the driveways are located closest to the side street, and many of the corner lots in the development have the same condition. So that makes the wraparound porch on the non-primary street side much more difficult because if we go to Lot 1, for example, the front porch would be left, and the driveway here, as looking at it, is on the right, and then the wraparound porch being next to the driveway is fairly impractical. This issue was not discovered during the site plan review phase, and it's the cause of this issue now with the proposal to omit the wraparound porch. The applicant has submitted building plans for 2 corner units, Lot 19 and Lot 38, with the building division. And staff had deferred action on these building permit plans because there was not the wraparound porch around the corner as illustrated in the PD plans and the site plans. So with that discrepancy, this is a good time to come to the Planning Commission for clarification on the design intent, as well as some sort of approval for the corner lots in Meadows of Cherry Hill, just so that there's something that would apply not just to the lots that are under review for building permits, but all of the lots moving forward for both building permits and for future design modifications if they're chosen by the future owners. Another item that makes this less practical with a wraparound porch on those driveway sides that are illustrated on the plan is that the sites have been graded and the sewer leads and water meters have been installed. So the driveways can't be switched over to the other sides because that would be putting sewer leads and water taps underneath driveways, which is not recommended and makes the development much more difficult. So with those utilities already in those driveways, it's not as simple as just flipping the driveway to the other side. When the plan development was approved, there were the following modifications to the zoning ordinance. The first is there's not required to be a horizontal offset along the rear side of the facade. The other is that the road easement width is 55 feet instead of 60, so some of those road rights-of-way are a little narrower. And there was a road location and a required stormwater buffer. Those modifications have been implemented through the development of the plan. The approved architectural plans are mostly consistent with the architectural design guidelines of the Cherry Hill Village overlay, and there were unique elevations on the PD plan and the site plans for those corner units and those 2 lots facing Ridge Road. So rather than install the wraparound porches on the corner lots, the applicant has proposed the following designs for the non-primary street side of the corner lots, as well as the 2 lots that face Ridge Road, and those lot numbers are listed in the staff report. The first is a minimum of 3 windows on the first floor, with at least 2 such windows having planter boxes at the lower portion of the window, supported by decorative brackets. The second is a minimum of 2 windows on the second floor. Third is an additional decorative feature of the shed roof over a double window set on the second floor. The roof shall have decorative posts for support and will have either a metal roof or asphalt dimensional shingles. And the fourth is either a window or decorative all-glass door off the back breakfast nook. And staff has reviewed the proposed designs from the applicant, and I can bring these up here. I'll scroll past the ones that were on the approved plans. They're in the packet, and we've seen them, but I want to go ahead and look at some of the black and white plans. These are similar to the plans that would be submitted to the building division. I think these may be the exact same ones that are still with the building division, where they do illustrate those windows that are on the ground floor. There's the breakfast nook off the back with the door, or the window back there. The windows on the second floor with the shed roof over the double window there. In reviewing these, staff recommends approval with the following additional design elements to be considered by the Planning Commission. And these are things that can be discussed with the applicant and the Planning Commission. We've noted these to the applicant just to let them know that these are considerations that we would be putting forward for discussion. For the shed roofs, we recommend that a metal standing seam roofing be considered for all the units, and that there be a minimum of 1 such roof. The second consideration is for the breakfast nook, to recommend a minimum window requirement for the breakfast nook door of at least a 3/4 light glass insert panel. And the third design consideration is a gable end treatment. For the gable ends, we recommend additional architectural treatment above the second floor window. For example, we recommend considering a different siding material in these areas. For example, shake siding on the gable ends if shake siding is on the front, or board and batten siding on the gable ends if board and batten siding is on the front. As an alternative, the applicant has suggested a gable vents on these sides, which are illustrated in the previously approved final site plan. Finally, during PD and site plan review, there was a greater emphasis on having the wraparound porches on the east sides of units 1 and 3 because these sides directly face Ridge Road. However, these units each have 8 Norway spruce trees on the east side of the home facing Ridge Road and are buffered by the 85-foot wide landscape berm fronting Ridge Road. Therefore, these sides will be less visible from Ridge Road as the landscaping grows. And that's both to buffer the development from the road itself, but also for those future owners of units 1 and 3 to buffer their visibility and sound, et cetera, from the road for their own privacy. So there is going to be that vegetative buffer that would make those units less visible from the road, making the porches on those sides much less necessary, we think. So with that, our recommendation is approval of the elevation designs of units 1, 3, 6, 18, 19, 26, 31, 34, and 38 in the Meadows of Cherry Hill, subject to any additional design changes required by the Planning Commission. We've drafted a model motion for the Planning Commission's consideration. The motion ends with a colon, so if there's any additional items on top of that motion, we can add those at that time. So that concludes our comments, and we'll be happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Patrick. Is the project sponsor here?
Good evening. Sorry, I know it's been a long evening. Everybody wants to probably go home at this point. So John Goldman, I've been here before quite a few times. I am excited to say that the project is doing exceptionally well. It looks beautiful. We had some elevations, some color renderings. I don't know if those are available just to quickly show what the 3D renderings look like. Do you have the 3D ones that yeah.
The front, yeah.
Yeah, so just some of these that, so you can get an idea. Prices are selling between $6 and $780. So prior to constructing anything, obviously I knew this was an issue, so we've trying to figure this out. I came to Patrick, and that's why we're here tonight, to try to close this gap and not have an issue.
I'm going to start things off, and I'm going to ask a question. Was this just an oversight on the part of your design, that you didn't catch the need to flip-flop the garage locations on those corner lots?
Not sure. I'll be honest with you. It was a proposed concept in the original PDD, and I think that, I'll take full responsibility, but I just think as we started the process and we started engineering, it sort of just nobody really said, hey, we need side porches on some of these. And again, I think it was proposed, and the idea of it was that on certain elevations it might work. But I think in the spirit of what the township wants, I believe, which is just making sure that, a side isn't completely exposed. That's why we've presented, these additional features. I think it's pretty rich of what we've, proposed as an alternate. But again, I think engineering in Wayne County, and all the processes started, and it just got overlooked.
Okay.
That's why we're here today.
I want to propose something towards you,
Yes.
to you. Number one, maybe not everybody wants a wraparound porch. Number two, in these instances, and by the way, 19, lot number 19 doesn't really apply, because actually that one can have a wraparound porch on the corner.
You are correct.
The other ones, did you consider maybe having, instead of a wraparound porch in the front, a wraparound deck in the back, coming from the back door, in lieu of the wraparound front porch? Because maybe not everybody wants the wraparound porch, but everybody likes a deck, and that might be a great alternative in your selling process. Just an idea,
Well, to answer that, we offer a covered patio, or lanai, if you want to call it that. That's the fancy term, and all of our customers have been basically purchasing those. But they're on, except for, I get confused with which one it applies, but all of them, it's on the other side of the house. So there's only one lot where you see the patio, and that particular customer is adding that patio, which is on lot 19. It's just not drawn here, but there is going to be a covered patio on that side.
My thought came from my own desire that I may not want to walk out my front door to my porch. I may want to walk out of the back door to a nice area that's like a deck or a porch, and wrap around that way, as opposed to what you have. And it gives you some variety in terms of that, instead of looking as if, well, we can't give you a full porch situation around. You have a small front porch and a back deck that kind of wraps around the house.
Yeah, I think most homeowners would probably rather not sit out on a porch and look at a side road. So I don't know that, I think people prefer to just sit out on their patio and probably look out back. I don't know. I don't agree or disagree, but I think that, we're just trying to come up with a way to make this aesthetically pleasing. And I think we have. I've had extensive conversations with Patrick, and we're just here tonight to try to find a way to get this approved, obviously.
Try to help you turn lemons into
Yeah,
lemonade.
and keep the homeowners happy as well, so, yes.
Anybody else from the commission? I'll start down with Commissioner Acharya.
No comments.
Commissioner Foster?
No comments or
Thoughts?
questions?
Any, Commissioner Okan?
They look great. No comments.
Commissioner Weber?
No, I think they look fine.
Architect Zuber?
Well, I would question why you would have some of the little shed roofs over the windows with asphalt shingles and some of them with metal roofing. I would love to see them with all metal roofing on those little bump outs.
I don't have a problem with that. I don't disagree. I think the metal would look nice. I think it would make the side pop. I think it would look fine. So I would have no problem agreeing to that.
So, I also don't, I think that there is a way that you could make those gable ends, the contrasting material from the front, either board and batten or shakes, depending on the particular front elevation, just by putting a piece of trim. You know, I get that the asymmetry of the side elevations would make it odd, but I mean, it could if you took it all the way down to the bottom of that. But if you put a piece of trim kind of 2/3 of the way down and just made a contrasting material up in the gable end, I think that could look nice as well.
I talked to Patrick about that, Mr. Sloan. I think it would be a little bit distracting to have, I think there'd be too much going on there. I like on the side of the homes where you have, you know, the trim board to line up with the bottom of the gable. I think with it having to be so high up, and this is not a great rendering. I don't know, Mr. Sloan, if you could go back to the CAD drawing of, I think the biggest issue with going with a different material there, you know, we've got a lot going on here, I think. I mean, it's not a money thing. It's not a cost thing. I think there's a lot going on here. So I think if we added the metal roof and we had the windows and the planter boxes and everything, I think it's enough. But the other issue that we have is that, remember, if we do it on this side, it's not going to look right because it's not going to be on the other side of the house, which faces another homeowner. And yes, I could do it on the other side, but it starts to create an issue with other homeowners saying, why don't I have that on my house? And we're changing the makeup of the home.
They won't ask that about the window boxes or the metal
I don't
roofs?
think I think that's easily justifiable, absolutely, because the homeowners that have purchased, I've told them there's special conditions that apply. I just didn't specify what those were. That's why we're here tonight. But I don't know. I feel like just adding board and batten or shake at the top there would, I think there'd be a lot going on there with a lot of different materials. Respectfully, that's my opinion.
Well, I stand corrected as an architect. Thank you for
No,
your opinion.
I completely, you know, respect your opinion. I don't know. I'm not sure.
Clearly you don't.
Anyone else? Commissioner Eggenberger?
Yeah, I have no comments.
Watkins? Commissioner Watkins?
No
Got your name
objection,
for a
Mr.
second.
Chair, no objection.
Okay, anything at all in terms of going forward here? Is there a motion to be made?
I'm not going to make a motion. Nope. Nope.
Okay, so at that point, no one wants to make a motion to approve the elevation designs?
I'll make the motion. I just gotta find it.
Okay, it's going to go in the other direction.
I have to say, if you write a letter to us that we proposed changes, that rubs me the wrong way too. When you put it, the renderings were submitted with the proposed wraparound porches merely for discussion purposes, but anyway.
Chairman, I move to approve the elevation designs of units 1, 3, 6, 18, 19, 26, 31, 34, and 38 in the Meadows of Cherry Hill, subject to the following changes to the elevations. All right, there was anything we need to add right there, right? Was there anything we need to add there, Patrick?
Not unless there were additional changes to the elevations that were
Let me
submitted.
restate that then. Mr. Chairman, I move to approve the elevation designs of units 1, 3, 6, 18, 19, 26, 31, 34, and 38 in the Meadows of Cherry Hill as proposed.
So you don't want to change the metal roofs, the shed roofs to metal roofs?
We can change that.
Subject to changing the shed roofs to metal roofs as shown on the elevations.
Support.
Okay, we've got a motion on the floor by Commissioner Weber and support by Commissioner Ocon. Any further discussion or any alterations? Hearing none, seeing none. Commissioner Zuber, would you call the vote, please?
Sure. Commissioner Ataria? Yes. Commissioner Eggenberger?
Yes.
Commissioner Foster?
Yes.
Commissioner Ocon?
Yes.
Commissioner Watkins?
Yes.
Commissioner Weber?
Yes.
Commissioner Zuber, no, and Chairman Green.
Yes. Good luck to you.
Thank you very much. I appreciate your time.
Our next agenda item of the evening is McDonald's Restaurant, where we're considering a site plan on property located south of Michigan Avenue between Lots Road and Hannon Road. The proposed changes include converting the single drive-through to a double drive-through. Patrick, could you give us more detail?
Like many other McDonald's restaurants, they're converting the single drive-through to a double drive-through. And as a result, they're moving the loading space, the loading space will be similar to where it is. It does occupy one of the lanes, but the loading space, if it's occupied, the drive-through lanes will still have the minimum 10 spaces. So the relocation of the loading space was not a concern of staff's. There are a row of parking spaces on the south side of the site that are proposed to be removed. That's illustrated on the south side. They're still going to be there. It's still going to be asphalted, but they're not going to be classified as parking spaces. And with that reduction, the parking will still meet the numerical requirements of the ordinance. The reason for removing those parking spaces is that if there's a truck here in the loading space, when the truck leaves the loading space, it will have to go around the double drive-through. So it'll have to make a right turn to swing around and then to swing the entire truck around the south side of the lot. So based on the turning templates and the existing asphalt, it meets it, but it does require removing these spaces along the south lot line to do it. And again, the remaining parking spaces are more than enough to meet the parking requirements of the site itself. There's a landscaping plan that's on file that we will require to be inspected to make sure it complies with the previously approved landscape plan. There are some landscaping changes to the south side of the building to increase the amount of landscaping there, so those are acceptable changes. The last item that we'll note is that whenever there's a site plan required for a site, because there's a site plan application, the signage on the site has to be brought into conformity with the zoning ordinance. There's a pole sign along Michigan Avenue, and the ordinance doesn't allow for pole signs. It requires monument signs. So as part of this project, that pole sign will, at the front along Michigan Avenue, will have to be removed and converted to a monument sign. This is something that we typically see fairly often. Back in the day, we had a lot of pole signs, and over the years, as sites have been redeveloped, those pole signs have gone away and have been changed with monument signs. I believe this was a condition required a few years ago on some plans that were approved in 2018 for some site modifications. So this condition would just be consistent with those plans, and we would have to make sure that that pole sign is converted to a monument sign as a condition of approval. On the south side of the site, there's a much larger pole sign that is visible from the highway. That particular pole sign got a variance several years ago, so that would not be subject to the removal standards of this part of the zoning ordinance because that did get a variance, so that one can continue as is. So our recommendation is approval of the McDonald's site plan amendment on the subject text parcel, subject to replacing the non-conforming pole sign at the front of the site with a conforming monument sign per Article 6A of the zoning ordinance. That concludes our staff report, and we'll be happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Patrick. Project representation here today. Come on up, sir.
Good evening. Last but not least, my name is Jeff Brinks, and I'm with Venture Engineering, working with McDonald's. I don't think I really need to add much to Patrick's introduction. Fairly straightforward. I'm sure most of you are familiar with the side-by-side drive-through facilities that McDonald's installs, and the drive-through is obviously a huge part of their business and became increasingly important over the last few years. So this is part of a project to continue to improve that part of their business. We did have one question regarding the signage. Patrick mentioned that it did come up in 2018. Obviously, there was a different design professional then and different construction folks at McDonald's, and that slipped through the crack somehow. The question is, obviously McDonald's would love to keep their existing sign. If they were to pursue relief from that, would they still have an opportunity to pursue that through the Zoning Board of Appeals, through a variance process, or how would that potentially be dealt with if they would like to keep that sign, or at least request to keep it?
Yeah, the variance process, it's available to anyone as long as it's a non-use variance or anything that's otherwise prohibited. So this is something that McDonald's could apply to the Zoning Board of Appeals for, citing the section of the zoning ordinance that requires removal of a non-conforming sign. That would be the section of the ordinance that you would be appealing for relief.
That was the only question. Otherwise, do have the restaurant owner here this evening, Neil, so between the two of us, we'd certainly be happy to answer any questions, but.
Well, thank you very much.
Hopefully we'll end on an easy note for you.
I have to admit, I've never been in that McDonald's. I've driven by it a gazillion times. Well, I go to the McDonald's at Canton Center and Michigan Avenue, so it's closer to my home. And I just assumed all McDonald's had double drive-throughs.
Oh.
I thought that was a state of the art now.
Yeah, well, when there's, probably pushing 600 restaurants in the state of Michigan, it takes a while for them all to catch up.
Yeah. Okay, we're just going to do a free-for-all here. Any questions or concerns from the commission? Anybody have any comments?
I do.
What's that?
I have one small comment.
What's
As the
that?
restaurant owner, if you're in one of those double drive-through lanes and the other menu board just keeps getting helped and yours doesn't, it's a situation for high blood pressure for the person in the slow lane. Can you do anything to make sure it goes one, then the other, then? I never go to McDonald's. Just kidding. Mm-hmm. Mm.
It's automatically when it gets queued in,
Mm-hmm.
so we don't have that issue. Because usually in most restaurants, there's always a primary lane as you kind of indicate.
Which one is it?
Each restaurant
Oh.
is different on the flow and where people pull up. What
I see.
When it's busy, it's both going, but when it's slow, there tends to be where people tend to automatically line up for whatever reason with the drive pattern.
Huh.
That usually becomes the primary lane, so that's where they get attention. That's where most people tend to be pulled up to. So it's, and during COVID, it's with the staffing issues that we have.
Oh, yeah.
It becomes more prevalent because and we're trying to keep both lanes open.
Mm-hmm.
I know many times there's been restaurants where they put cones where they're closing one of the lanes because we don't have the staff. We're struggling to get staff. So that's been, a thing that we struggled with the pandemic, pre-pandemic, we didn't have the issue. But we're having that issue today.
Yeah.
But the good news is the restaurant's growing, it's been doing well. So obviously,
Good.
we're looking to add that because since we, I purchased the restaurant in 2017. And since then, we've been able to, so then now we're at a point where, the volume is there, so for safety, for stacking, this seems to be more appropriate than.
I always wondered how they keep the orders straight when the traffic between the two lanes differs. It's not like it's one and then the other always, because somebody's got a more complex order or what have you, or somebody gets ignored. But they always get it right when I come through. So I have to commend. Ah, okay. All right. My biggest beef is with McDonald's app, because it keeps wanting me to sign in through Facebook, and I'm not doing that. Yeah, I know. Anybody else?
No, I'm okay.
Yeah, the app used to be so simple. I used to go in with my email address, make an order, pay for it, and go and pick it up, and it was then we got into this thing where it wouldn't let me sign in and all that crap. Do I hear a motion coming?
Sure. I move to approve the site plan for McDonald's on tax parcel number 141-99-028-701, subject to replacing the non-conforming pole sign at the front of the site with a conforming monument sign per Article 6A of the zoning ordinance.
Vote.
All right, we've got a motion on the floor by Commissioner Zuber and support by Commissioner Acharya. Any further discussion on that motion? No. Commissioner Zuber, would you call the vote, please?
Sure. Commissioner Acharya?
Yes.
Commissioner Eggenberger?
Yes.
Commissioner Foster?
Yes.
Commissioner Okon?
Yes.
Commissioner Watkins? Commissioner Weber?
Yes.
Commissioner Zuber, yes, and Chairman Green.
Yes. Good luck to you. All right. All right, at this point in time, we have our public comment section.
Move to close the public comment session.
Support.
I mean, we haven't heard from Erin yet, so maybe she wants to talk.
Yeah.
So I'm
there you
gonna
go.
I'm gonna ask Greg's question he asked me. Are you guys fighting?
No, I was facilitating a Zoom meeting for our legal counsel in case there were any legal questions that came.
Oh, okay.
Sit over here for this. But no, we're still besties. It's okay.
Besties.
All right, so no public comment. Any reports or discussions from staff or anything? Anything at all?
No, nothing
Nothing-
beyond what we presented
nothing
and
I
what's on
got
the
I've
agenda.
got a question.
Yeah.
I got it.
10:15.
I've got it.
Aaron's got her hand
Okay.
up.
If I may, I just want to give a brief update on the master plan.
Yes,
Just,
okay.
per the memo that came out to you in your packet, we're still moving forward with the master plan. The comment boards that had been up in place at township facilities for a couple of months were taken down at the end of August. We received over 800 comments, so we're very, very excited about that. Combined with all of the public engagement events that we've done over the summer with Liberty Fest, Rally on Ridge, and Pride Outside, we've received over 1,000 comments. So we're really proud at the response rate from the public. It's really amazing. The upcoming public engagement events, stay tuned to look at your newsletter. We've been working with McKenna Consultants to draft a community master plan. It is about 99.9% done. As soon as it is completely done and the advisory board meets, they will review it and make sure there aren't any red flags or anything that we need to address. But we also had Professor Jeffrey Bernstein from Eastern Michigan University review some of the draft text. He teaches and researches methods and styles for conducting public surveys, so he was able to give us some really valid feedback on how we were phrasing a couple of questions. Most of it was really good, but he just gave us a couple of fine-tune tips in order to make things a little bit easier and better. So that'll be available online. It'll be available through our website. Hard copies will also be available at township facilities, and we're working that out. So that kind of concludes all of that. We're hoping the advisory board to start meeting sometime in September. We are finalizing the dates on what everybody is available, so hopefully we'll be able to get some feedback from them and then bring some solid information and things for you to look at.
The advisory board's been selected?
Yes, they have.
Real quick, what happened to the Canton Banquet and Convention Center?
We haven't heard from them. It's been a few months. They had special land use approval a few months ago, And I believe it was their intent to proceed with a site plan review, but we haven't heard anything. The last we had was they were doing some brush clearing in the site, no tree removal, but some underbrush clearing. That was a few months ago, so we haven't heard from them. So we can follow up to see what their latest is.
And what's with the dumping of the concrete on, in that lot, that paved lot, just west of the AutoZone?
Oh, right in front of Kroger.
Was it past your bedtime?
Oh, my God, way past.
Do I hear a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Support.
All in favor?
Aye.
I just want to forewarn everybody real quick. I read in Crane's Detroit Business